Peace to all the saints. Thank you for joining me. Today we are giving a critique of Dr. Jordan Peterson, who is a Canadian clinical psychologist and really not known for his academic prowess among the masses. He's really known for his comments on gender pronouns and a lot of his positions that are antithetical to what is popular. And for that reason, we will give a quick review of some of his ideas. And particularly after we watch a few clips of his, we'll go through his 12 rules for life. He has a lot of knowledge to give. So we're going to talk about it, see what kind of game the gentleman has to share with all of you. And we'll also be critical of it and make sure that it's really meaningful advice that he's actually sharing. So you will have to bear with me. I will be going back and forth and doing a couple screen shares here and there. So what I will start with is one of his clips, and we'll go ahead and get that going right now. I see that there are a number of folks who want to join in. After we get through a little bit of Peterson's work, we'll go ahead and merge folks on so that they can share their perspective, whether it's on or off topic, but hopefully we'll start with the comments that are on topic. Before we get going, I do want to acknowledge all of the folks who support my work at www.patreon.com/thesaintandthesinner. Now let's go ahead and see what Dr. Jordan Peterson has to share with the people. I'm going to go ahead and do a screen share here, and we'll share an entire application window. So you guys confirm that let me make sure that you guys can actually see this. One moment. Having a few technical difficulties. Do bear with me. Now, the irony of these technical issues that I'm having right now is not lost because I've made my life as a technologist running multiple technology companies. So it's funny that I should have any technical difficulties. Allow me a moment. Yes, here we are. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and play this one from 2 minutes, 30 seconds in. And the reason I'm playing it from 2 minutes, 30 seconds in is because as many academics go, they basically babble for the first 10 to 20 minutes of their lecture using all of these polysyllabic words and not really saying anything worthwhile. I know because I've had professors far superior to Jordan Peterson at the University of California, Berkeley, and at the Johns Hopkins University, and they too were not terribly interesting for the entire lecture. So we're going to get straight to the meat of it.
So you might say, imagine you're walking down Bloor Street and there's this guy who's like alcoholic and schizophrenic and has been on the streets for 10 years. He sort of stumbled towards you and, incoherently mutters something. That's a problem. And it would be good if you could fix it, but you haven't got a clue about how to fix that. You just walk around that and go find something that you could fix, because if you muck about in that, not only is it unlikely that you'll help that person, it's very likely that you'll get hurt yourself. So, just because while you're experiencing things announce themselves as in need of repair doesn't mean that it's you right then and there that should repair them. You have to have some humility. You don't walk up to a helicopter that isn't working and just start tinkering away with it.
He brings up something that's extremely meaningful. He basically says something that is completely in line with our philosophy in the Assassin. He says that when you come upon something that clearly is in disrepair, it's broken, it needs to be fixed. It doesn't have to be you to fix it, because sometimes when you engage in a problem, you end up with a problem, which is to say, when you walk past a homeless person, if you're in Los Angeles, for example, downtown LA, and you gave $1 to every homeless person you walked by, next thing you know, you wouldn't have $1 either, and you might be on your way to being in the same situation. What he's essentially pointing out is the philosophical position that you heard Ayn Rand point out many years ago, which is, I think she calls it the epistemology of selfishness, if I remember correctly. It's been a long time since I've been in academia. I'm a businessman. But essentially, she says that there is meaning to being selfish. You are not on the earth to sacrifice yourself for others, because if you destroy yourself, You can't help anyone. You can't help yourself. So I think he's wise in pointing out this obvious truth that many academics are already familiar with. Most people, common folks, hear Jordan Peterson speak and they think he's sharing profound ideas. However, to anyone with a proper university education, you've probably heard most all of these ideas before. But he does share something that's very meaningful, which is the idea that everything broken doesn't need to be fixed by you. And certain problems, if you try to fix them, you will end up with a problem. So I'm starting off on the more simplistic side of the ideas that he's sharing. None of these ideas, mind you, these philosophical perspectives are his own. He's merely sharing very clear, logical, common sense-based perspectives with you. What's impressive about Dr. Jordan Peterson is the man that he is. When the Canadians went overboard and started mandating their version of morality, started mandating the usage of improper English through gender pronouns, he said, no, 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 I won't participate. He stood up as a man, and that is what is remarkable about Dr. Jordan Peterson. Very few of the ideas he shares are his own. Very few of them are original. Very few of them are profound. Most of you, if you had a proper education from a top 20 university, you would have A, already heard these ideas, and B, you would have already experienced a professor who's far more accomplished and perhaps articulate and a better lecturer than he is. Although he does have a great sense of being humble, he has tremendous humility, and he is a bright mind, definitely above average in intellect. Carrying on to the next lesson from Dr. Jordan Peterson, we're going to kind of move through. So this next screen share, I really like this next one. So this is from a video clip called Pursue What is Meaningful. At least I think I like this one. These were shared with me from a subscriber at patreon.com/thesaintandthesinner. So let me go ahead and put this one on screen for you. And this one is Pursue What is Meaningful. So I'm kind of hearing this with you, and we're chopping it up.
Right? You read about Nazi Germany and you think, well, I'm Oskar Schindler. I'd save the Jews. It's like, no, you wouldn't. Right? You wouldn't, because people didn't. And the probability is very high that you wouldn't. And all you have to do is think it through. You know, Anne Frank, it's like, you're really going to put your family at risk to hide a group of another family in your attic for like multiple years while there's Nazis parading the street, and where if you get exposed, you all die. You're going to do that, are you? It's like very unlikely. And no wonder, it's not surprising that it's unlikely, but you don't want to be inflating yourself with with fictional heroism without actually knowing the facts on the ground. So I told her to read it and to understand that the policemen were her. And that's the thing to understand. Well, the idea that the savior is the person who takes the world's sins upon himself is exactly that. It's exactly the same idea. It's like the way that...
I'm going to go ahead and stop it right there and just clarify a few things for you. The first thing I do want to do is acknowledge Marcos. Thank you for starting off the super chats. I truly appreciate you paying tuition and showing me that consideration. He writes, facts. If we focus on too many problems, nothing gets solved. This is so true. Focus is the key differentiator between those who are successful and those who are average. And to me, being average means being a loser, right? That's the definition of average, because everyone's average. You've not accomplished anything. Being successful is something you attain through focus, returning to the same goal every day until you've achieved it, returning to the same game plan on a regular basis until you've made progress. Now, here's the meaningful thing about what he just said. Jordan Peterson shares a unique perspective. He says so many people read the story of Anne Frank, this Jewish family that was victim of the Nazis, and they think, gee, I would have helped them because I'm a good person. I would have helped the Jews because I don't like Nazis and I don't like hate. Not realizing that you're an average person. You're a common individual. You are not a hero. You've never been a hero at anything in your life. Why is it you think all of a sudden, if you were in Nazi Germany, you'd be one of the few Germans who said, you know what? You're telling me that the Aryan is a Superman. You're telling me that the Germans are exceptional. Patooey, I don't believe that. And what's more, even though the Jews are a minority and I'm not one of them, I want to help them out of the kindness of my heart. And not only do I want to help them, I want to help them at my own personal risk and the risk of all my loved ones. No, you would not do that. You're lying to yourself. So what Dr. Jordan Peterson does is he's asking people to take a realistic look in the mirror, number one. Number two, to be honest with themselves. And number three, to understand that average people don't do extraordinary things. So when you're reading the story of Anne Frank, pretending in your psychopathic mind that you're going to be the hero against a whole society that's oriented on evil and Aryan supremacy, you're not being real. And think about the society today. Most people just go with what is popular, right? Today we say LGBTQ. That's fantastic. Although 25 years ago, we'd say LGBTQ and most people would be like, thumbs down. So now we see wherever the movement of the society goes, that's where most people will be. Very few of us are exceptional. So I agree with him on that point that he's making. My work with the assassin is for you all to live as saints, which is to be exceptional. We are grooming the leadership class. Now, here's another thing that he elaborates and goes into. He says, when you read this story about Anne Frank, don't think of yourself as that one rare German family that said, we're going to hide this Jewish family at our own peril and make sure that they will survive, even though it's so much self-sacrifice that it could be devastating to us. Don't think of yourself like that. Instead, think of yourself as one of those regular Germans who was following the rules, even when the rules were bad, evil, wicked. Think of yourself as one of those average Germans who, when Hitler said, you're an Aryan Superman, you said, yeah, boss, that sounds good. Think of yourself as that person, because that's probably what you are. And instead of following that mentality that's being promoted in the mainstream, stop. You don't have to be a hero and go save a Jewish family. Just don't do anything evil to a Jewish family. Don't go along with an evil mainstream ideology. Don't cooperate with government plans that are pretty much wicked. He's saying you don't have to necessarily be a hero and do good. He says just refrain from doing evil. And that's a meaningful insight. I think it's really, really like a harsh pill that very few people are willing to take. Now, we say hashtag no pill in the assassin because we definitely do not believe in intoxicants, alcohol, or drugs. And if you've studied Dr. Jordan Peterson, he for a time was addicted to intoxicants. So he as well knows that these are very bad things. So I say that just in the metaphorical sense. I want to shout out to Kodum. Just picked up your book. Expecting to join Patreon soon. Salute. I truly appreciate that. And I hope that you enjoy that book very much. And do let me know what you think. I want to acknowledge the other super chats as we progress. Kahan Shoulders writes, just turned 18 a few months ago, and I've gained so much value from your wisdom. I'm joining Patreon tonight. Peace. Kahan Shoulders, I truly appreciate that. And I'm very proud of all of the young saints, because if you start at this young age being focused, you will achieve so much, because your mindset will be so superior to all of those around you. And I can assure you, it's not about how intelligent you are. It's about how often you apply your intelligence. And if you're starting now, you will be leaps and bounds ahead of all of your peers. I look forward to seeing what you achieve. That's correct. So Jaime Dale, or Jamie Dale, writes, Ayn Rand, oh no, so we got a fake pimp, read Pimp by Pimp. Now he's a businessman and going to deduce the ideas of a clinical psychologist, and it's already poor. Now that's funny. I would encourage you, Jaime, or whatever your name may be, I challenge you to do this. Line up my resume next to Dr. Jordan Peterson's. Line up my resume next to yours. And I promise you, I went to superior universities versus you and versus him. And he went the route of academia, and I went the route of business. And I've been very successful in business. And in fact, he's now becoming a businessman. If you observe his moves, he's now charging for lectures and he's making a pretty penny. He's become wise because he's figured out that writing academic works that no one reads is not profitable, and it does not influence the society. And now he's out to influence the society. So I appreciate you sharing your words. And I invite you to drop your LinkedIn URL and tell us what your education is and what your background is. But looking at the grammar that you have here, I highly doubt that you're anywhere near anywhere near my level, but I appreciate you joining in. It's a shame that you should use your time to talk to someone you don't respect. Jim Ellis, thank you for the super chat, Saint. Carrying on. He writes, Jordan Peterson is the reason I'm here. It's the main reason I thought this would be interesting. Indeed, Jordan Peterson is a very educational individual. So let's get back to see what the gentleman has to say. Carrying on. So let's go on to his next piece. And this will be from his biblical series. Let's go ahead and hit up this screen share. There we go.
I had a couple of questions about dialogue and engaging in dialogue with people. So the first issue that I face is I have a very high need for intellectual stimulation, and I can't get that with most people. It's something like you can have a dialogue for a time, but then
Titrate openness. Yeah.
And but then they sort of run out of ideas and they can't keep up, and it sort of falls apart. And I think this is a problem that intellectuals have quite frequently, is that they sort of, once they start reading difficult and rewarding stuff, they stop wanting to talk to regular people. And I think that contributes to the disconnect that you see between intellectuals and working class people and stuff like that. And the other question I had was about...
Okay, wait, I don't know if that's a question. I mean, I believe there's a question in there, but
the question is, how do you...
First thing I want to point out that Dr. Peterson does is you have a young man who clearly is very arrogant and has tried to veil his attempt at aggrandizing himself in the form of a question, although he didn't actually put a question mark on the end of it, which really reveals his lack of intellectualism. And so what he's essentially saying is, my brain is so big, I'm so intelligent, I can't relate to average people. Which, if you were so intelligent, you would find a way to see the value in everyone, because you have a mind that allows you to learn more. Guess not, right? And then the second part of the young man's question, he basically says that, well, as I have such a big brain, I'm so highly gifted intellectually, I can't relate to anyone. Well, if you were highly gifted, you'd probably be at MIT. You'd be at Northwestern, you'd be at Harvard, Yale, you'd be at an elite institution. And at an elite institution, there are surely minds that are comparable to your own. I know when I was at Berkeley and Johns Hopkins, there were plenty of bright people all over the place. And I remember the first time I met someone that was definitely smarter than I was. Economics, this Indian kid, crazy smart. And so this kid who's barely able to formulate a sentence, not impressed. What I am impressed with is Dr. Peterson's, he's actually listening to the young man. And so he pointed out, like, hey, son, you actually didn't ask a question. You were just bragging on yourself. And he was kind enough not to embarrass the young man. And then the other thing that I'm impressed about with Dr. Peterson is, for all of his academic background, he's a very humble man. He doesn't ever try to intellectually dominate anyone or make people feel as though they're imbeciles, even in his debates with feminists and liberals and people who are clearly his intellectual inferior. He simply goes through the facts and lays out a linear argument and doesn't make fun of people or give ad hominem attacks. So that is something we can all learn from Dr. Peterson, for sure, myself. So that's one thing I wanted you to observe, because when you see a great man operate, it's not always what he says, it's also how he says it, it's how he responds. And so he uses his intellect, unlike this young man who's basically being negative and saying, oh, there's all these people below me. Peterson tries to lift up people, whereas this young man tries to put people down. And that's merely a difference in maturity level. So it's an important thing we wanted to point out with Dr. Peterson. Carrying on, here's this is really important. And this is what I like to hear from Dr. Peterson, is when he's digging into his background as a clinical psychologist. So I'm going to actually put on a clip in which he describes the two most destructive attitudes in humankind. So I'm going to go ahead and populate that right now.
And my experience as a clinical psychologist has taught me that the two most pathological emotions, or the two most destructive emotions, I think you can, or attitudes, because I'm not sure they're exactly emotions, is resentment and arrogance. And resentment seems to be something like the observation that the world is not a fair place, but worse than that, that it's not a fair place in a manner that's particularly unfair to you. Because it's obvious that the world isn't a fair place. It's predicated, the world is a tragic place. And there's justice. If there's any justice, it's imperfect justice.
I want to stop it right there. And I hope you guys have soaked this up. I know if you follow me, you already know this. Clearly, the world's not fair, nor is it equal. We all say we're all equal, but we're not equal. Man to man, you're not equal. Woman to man, you're not equal. This is a society of hierarchy. But what he points out, he says resentment is not only when you say the world's not equal and not fair, because we all know that. That's a given reality. The big issue with this kind of resentment is you think it's particularly unfair to you because you're black, because you're LGBTQ, because you're a woman and there's a glass ceiling. Because of all of these excuses, you think for some reason when it rains, white guys don't get wet. When it rains, heterosexual people don't get wet, just the gay people get wet. When it rains, rich people don't get wet, just the poor people get wet. You think you're in an especially bad situation. He is rightly identifying that piece of resentment in which you think you're in an especially bad situation is one of the most dangerous things. And that is something that is coming to pervade the global society. And it has started in the Western society, and we're bleeding that into the rest of the world through our filthy media propaganda. I'm going to let the good doctor continue with this gospel that he's sharing.
And you might think, well, how can you not be resentful under those conditions? And I think that's a powerful argument. How can you not, or a powerful question, how can you not be resentful under those conditions? But I can tell you that all it does is make it worse. And it's a very interesting form of worse, because people justify their resentment against the system or against being itself, for that matter, by rationalizing to themselves the fact that it's so clearly unjust that having any admiration or support for it verges on the pathological. But the problem with that is that as soon as you adopt that attitude, you start to act in ways that make the conditions that you were originally objecting to much worse. So then, instead of being at least neutral with regards to the problem, you're accelerating and strengthening the original issue. And I really think that's true with resentment. And Nietzsche actually wrote a fair bit about resentment. He called it ressentiment, I think, is if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Yes. Well, it's a good question, because that definitely happens. That's a problem in psychotherapy. Is you often have someone who has a chip on their shoulder, which is one way of thinking about it, And part of it is to disabuse them of the notion that anyone escapes from that. Because one of the things that I think drives class hatred, insofar as that's still a relevant phenomenon, and I think it's still quite relevant, is that people have strange ideas about who's rich and who's poor, first of all, especially in North America, because most North Americans think that anybody who has more money than them is rich. Right? When the fact of the matter is that everybody in North America is rich beyond belief compared to any reasonable historical standard.
Boom. I want to pause it right there. Dr. Peterson has given a lot of words, but to distill it into something simple, he's essentially saying that today many people are not seeing the real world. They're seeing what they want to see. They're making excuses and saying, oh, things are so bad for me. And he said, in actually making that excuse, they make things worse for themselves. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you say that, oh, I'm poor, there are no opportunities for me, you create less opportunities, because who wants to be around a complainer? And most importantly, he said something that most Americans don't know because so many of us are provincial and we don't travel internationally. And most of it is due to a limit of imagination, not finances. He says most Westerners, Canadians, Americans, Europeans, are wealthy beyond belief when you compare that to people in developing countries. Central Republic of Africa, Haiti, Nicaragua, all of these places where you have developing economies. You have people in certain countries where the per capita income is $11,000 per year. That's how much money the average person makes per year. And it's not only in Africa and in Latin America, even in Albania, for example, which is in Europe. In Albania, people are relatively poor. And we don't know what rich is because we're so spoiled. For example, the amount of money that people make per year in Albania, I've spent that in the last 3 weeks. In fact, the amount of money that people make per year in Colombia, I just sent to China tonight. Why? Because I can do that as an American. We have such a high standard of living that we're spoiled. And that's what he's saying. You are probably spoiled. So many of us are spoiled. That's what he's saying in academic language. Carrying on.
And that almost all the problems that can be solved with money, like with magnitude of money, have already been solved in North America. There's still problems of relative poverty, but that's a completely different issue. Relative poverty and absolute poverty are not the same problem, because relative poverty has to do with dominance hierarchy position, and absolute poverty has to do with privation. And the argument that there are people in North America who are in privation because they don't have money, I think that's an incredibly unsophisticated and weak argument. They might be in privation, but the probability that that's because they don't have money, or the probability that money would fix that, is virtually zero. So for example, I've had plenty of clients in my practice, and the best times of their lives were when they had no money. Because as soon as they had any money, man, they were in serious trouble. Those were often people who were addicted to something or other, like.
He defines 2 types of poverty. Poverty number 1, which is when you're missing the basics, the necessities. This is real poverty. We're talking about when you're in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia and you don't have enough money to eat. That's real poverty. Then he describes a second kind of poverty. This is like American poverty, European, Canadian poverty, Australian poverty. This is called relative poverty, which means that you think you're poor because I pulled up next to your Toyota in a Rolls Royce and you want a Rolls Royce. So you feel poor because you don't have what the other guy has. Relative poverty means you consider yourself poor relative to someone else. And the irony is, in America, we're not in a perfect meritocracy, but there is a level of meritocracy, which is to say that you will receive the fruits of your labors, generally speaking. And he even points out an irony in human life, which is the idea that many people, when they get money, if they don't have good habits, the money will destroy them. Meaning that you're Whitney Houston, you get all this money, and now you just have more money to buy crack. And you destroy yourself with crack cocaine, or you're Adele and you destroy yourself with alcoholism, or whomever you can name that has bad habits, and they leverage the money to magnify that which they are most. Money will magnify that which you are. If you're generous, you'll be more generous. If you're not a wise businessman, you will engage in business dealings that will undo and ruin you. So he is right. In the West, we don't have real poverty where it's staggering and it causes you to not be able to eat, not to be able to get your sustenance. We have relative poverty, which is primarily jealousy based. I'm jealous that I don't have what that other guy has. And we're not talking about the things that the other guy has that are necessary. We're talking about his discretionary spending, his car. It's not that you don't have a car, it's that he has a nicer car. And what he refers to are dominance hierarchies. The reason you want more money is so that you can feel as big and important of a man as that other guy who rolled up next to you in the Maserati. Which is funny because today a guy rolled up to me in a Maserati and said, "Hey, can I buy your car?" I said, "Not a chance. This is a one of a kind." Carrying on, I do want to shout out Jay Lyons, who writes, LGBT and BLM goes together. And I wish that were not true, but it is true. And it's ironic because BLM stands for Black Lives Matter, referring to Black people, Black being a racial category, or if you want to get anthropological, we would say Negroid, right? Meaning people whose origins are in Africa most recently. And then we're talking about LGBTQ, which is something that relates to your sexual behaviors, right? You're engaging in homosexual practice, which some would say is a choice. And mind you, they have still not identified a gay gene. Further, if you look at the lower species, we've not found any of the lower species to engage in homosexual sex that culminates in orgasm, which is to say, this is clearly something having to do with the mind rather than the DNA. Now that we've defined LGBTQ meaning like deviant sexual practice, and then BLM meaning something relating to race, how is it that these two things come together when they're unrelated? They come together because there are powerful people who are hyper liberal who are using these two parties, these two groups of individuals to forward their greater goals. Let's be real. Do hyper liberal people really care about Black lives? That doesn't make sense, because if you look at Kamala Harris, she was a prosecutor. What do prosecutors do? They lock people up. Who gets locked up the most? African-American males. If she wanted to help Black people, she probably would become a teacher of Black people, not one who locks up Black people. Carrying on, and I'm not saying they're innocent. I'm just saying prosecuting people doesn't help people as much as educating people. That's all I'm saying. Back to Dr. Peterson in this game he's sharing.
Like alcohol or cocaine. As soon as they got their unemployment check or even their employment check for that matter, they were gone for like 4 days. And they spent every bloody cent of it, and that was the end of that. And giving them more money was not going to fix the problem. And there's lots of people for whom having more money would not fix their problem at all. It's not that easy to figure out how to do sensible things with money. And it also makes you a target for people to take advantage of you virtually instantaneously.
Did you guys pick up what I just picked up? He said, for most people, giving them more money won't fix their problem. Wow, that's a shocker, because last time I was listening to the Democratic debates, they were all saying we're going to have free this, free that. We're going to give out a check to everybody. He said, if you give more money to people with bad habits, they do stupid things. They have more money to buy cocaine with. They have more money to gamble away in Las Vegas and lose it all. They have more money to engage in all variety of things that will destroy them. Because here's the irony. People who are intelligent enough to earn money know the value of it because it took work to earn it. They're also intelligent enough to be a good steward of that capital. However, people who have not worked hard and not put together the mental fortitude to earn money, those are the people who aren't smart enough to earn it, nor are they smart enough to retain it, nor are they smart enough to put it to meaningful use. And that money will destroy them. Or they'll end up getting tricked out of it by someone who's more clever. And so I like what he said. He said many of his clients, when they got an unemployment check, which means money you didn't earn, when they got an unemployment check, they used it to get more drugs. He said they disappeared for 4 or 5 days, going on a bender, having a good old time, pounds of like mountains of cocaine off some Scarface stuff. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Now, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with getting an unemployment check. I've never gotten one. If one was offered to me, I'd take it. But what would I do with that? I'd invest it in products or services that can multiply my money. I would invest it perhaps in paper assets and cryptocurrency. I'd invest it in something that has a chance of growing my fortune. I wouldn't invest it in a white powder substance that's going to give me a temporary high. Carrying on with Dr. Peterson.
So the idea that the kind of poverty that characterizes North America is there because some people don't have money is it's so unsophisticated an assessment. First of all, it assumes that poverty is homogenous, and it's by no means homogenous. I also grew up with working class kids, and hardly any of them graduated from high school. And virtually none of them went to university. A lot of them went off to work in the oil rigs, which was, pretty damn spectacular from a perspective of money. They never had any money. They spent it all. They'd go work in the bush for 2 weeks and they'd come out for 4 days or 5 days and spend, $4,000 in the bars, and that was the end of that. And then they were back in the oil rigs. Maybe they'd buy a car after working for a year or two, but they usually, lost their license because they were driving while impaired or wrapped the thing around a tree or something like that. The money in some sense had almost no utility for them because money isn't all that useful unless you know what to do with it. So back to the resentment issue, Orwell's comment on, and it's like a psychoanalytic comment in some sense. One of the things that psychoanalytic thought is really, really useful for is that it always makes you ask a question, which is, where's the other half? So if someone says, I'm doing this and I'm doing it for good reasons and I'm a good person, then the psychoanalyst always asks, well, okay, where's the other half of that? Like, is it projected onto someone else, which is almost always the case, or is it lurking around underneath causing some sort of trouble that the person doesn't want to admit to? Well, that's very, very frequently the case as well. And so Orwell's diagnosis for the moral insufficiency of left-wing socialists, utopian left-wing socialists in the United Kingdom, was that they were just resentful, especially the intellectuals. And the reason they were resentful was because even though they were smart and privileged and well-placed, say in universities and so on, there were lots of people around who had more money and theoretically more power than they did. And
woo! He just said that, and mind you, often Peterson, like most academics, they're referencing the ideas, theories of other scholars. And so he's referencing Orwell, whom you all should know. If you don't know Orwell, look him up. He's written some great works. He basically says that the intellectuals in the society, and he's particularly referring to the United Kingdom at this time, socialists, leftists, he's saying that the reason that they are so resentful is because they look in the mirror and say, gee, I'm plenty smart. I'm an intellectual. I have a PhD. Why is it that guy Marquett has more money than I do? And I'm the one with the big brain. I put in 7 years and got my PhD. I'm Dr. Seuss. I'm Dr. Dre. I'm Dr. Phil, and they ain't giving me no respect. And I'm only making $80,000 a year. And he's making that every couple months. They're mad. And they use all of this brain power and all this sophistication to influence the society in their favor. That's why the left has all these new words you've never heard of. Like, there's all these new words. I'm like, whoa, when did that word come out? For example, when I was in high school, if you said partner, if your teacher said, hey, everyone find a partner, that didn't mean if you're a guy, find a dude to call him your husband. That meant find someone to collaborate. When I was in high school, if someone said your partner, that meant a business partner. But the leftist intellectuals have modified the meaning of this word so that it now has connotation for homosexual relationships. And what's more, they've influenced heterosexual people to use the terminology partner, thereby removing gendered words like wife and husband, boyfriend, girlfriend. They've removed our usage of this. So now when you hear someone say partner, you don't know if they're gay or straight. And that's what they want. They want to be able to blend into the normal people so they can appear normal. So he pointed out something really important, which is that these intellectuals, being dissatisfied with their weak position in society, have used their intellect to restructure the society through language and through sharing ideas that are false. Ideas like I was born gay. There's no evidence for a gay gene, not one shred of evidence. Yeah. And I had an office at Johns Hopkins University. Yeah, I know people in the Vogelstein lab at Johns Hopkins University, like some of the foremost cancer researchers. I met Dr. Ben Carson, hung out with him on multiple occasions in multiple cities. Yeah, foremost scientists, they will all tell you there has not been a gay gene identified in the human being. Yet they say they're born this way. No evidence. But when they want to talk about science, they never mention the fact that there's an overwhelming association between pedophilia and homosexuality. Most instances of child molestation are homosexual. And that's one thing I like about Dr. Peterson is that he just sticks to the facts. He doesn't insult, he sticks to the facts. What he just pointed out was extremely important. Let me acknowledge Jacob with the super chat. I truly appreciate that. Saint didn't have anything to say. He just wanted to show love. Gary Mercado shares, Just wanted to send love and a big shout out to all the saints. Take notes, fellas. Truly appreciate the support. Shout out to all 300 saints who are on the call. If you haven't had a chance, please do hit that like button for your boy. Shout out to the lady saints, Tay Ashley, showing up. And look me up, love. I do have a channel for women. It's called Lady Saints. Got the first video posted on there today. Mr. O writes, super sticker. Okay. Thank you for the super chat. Truly appreciate that. Now let's get back to Jordan Peterson. Let's see if he got a little bit more game to share, and then we're going to go ahead and merge some folks in and see what they have to say.
And that was annoying. And so what they did to reconcile themselves to that was to pretend to be advocates for the working class, but all they were doing was masking their own resentment about being improperly rewarded by the power hierarchy. And when I read that, and I wasn't very old, I was probably 17 or so when I read that, I thought, that's exactly right. He got it exactly right. Now, he wrote that book. The book was The Road to Wigan Pier, which is a great book. And
oh, that was the end of it. Okay, cool. I'm going to go ahead and merge in some folks right now.
Well, is there something wrong with
Aristide, how are
money?
you? You're on mute, brother. I'm gonna go ahead and unmute you.
How you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing good, doing good. It's
What's
funny
up?
that you decided to talk about Jordan Peterson, because I've been listening to him like recently for a long time, and I was just wondering what you were gonna say or how your views align with his, and I kind of like the commentary that you put in there. So a lot of people were talking in the comments thinking you were gonna be negative, and I was like, he's just gonna critique it, he's just gonna look at it from an objective standpoint, I don't think you were going to like tear him apart or anything.
Right. And you know what? I think that people don't realize, certain words are not negative. To critique is to take a critical perspective, to analyze. And in the case where you analyze something and there's tremendous value there, as a wise and reasonable man, I must acknowledge that. And Jordan Peterson, though he is not a towering intellect like people would portray him to be, he brings meaningful knowledge to the mainstream. And I even enjoy his work, and I really appreciate how he stands up as a man. So you're right. I hope people have learned a little more about the Saint Center.
Yeah. I think people were in their feelings because he probably means a lot to them. And you know what happens when you attack people's heroes. And that's something that I learned mainly through you. You can't see somebody as like the main or like a god or something. They're human too. They have flaws.
You're so right. And that's a part of being a man, is being able to moderate your own emotions, number one. And number two, if anyone is really following the way of the assassin, it's to be reasonable at its core. It's to look at the information and assess based on your own reason and morals what the best route is. And it would really sadden me that people, before I speak, would jump to conclusions and make assumptions of what I was going to say. I think Peterson is a fine mind. I don't find him to be a terribly engaging lecturer. I've certainly seen better. I've given better lectures. And I think that people who have not gone to elite universities, Ivy League, top 50, they think he's like the smartest guy they've ever heard. But really, he's just referencing Carl Jung. He's referencing, like all the basics, Orwell. He's referencing all of the people you would have already studied if you had a proper basic education. And so I think that people are overrating him in his intellect. His treasure to mankind is not for his intellectual prowess. His treasure is for his ability to speak up, because most academics are not vocal people. They don't stand out in front. They stand behind. Like, for example, Adolf Hitler spoke out, but Karl Haushofer, you've never heard of, he was an intellectual and academic behind the scenes. Benito Mussolini, you've heard of, but you've never heard of Giovanni Gentile, which was the philosopher of fascism, the academic, the intellectual, right? Now, Peterson's not on the order of a Giovanni Gentile, who is a true mastermind, but he is indeed an academic, and he brings language to the masses that's mostly understandable. It's not lexical language. People can digest it and appreciate the ideas. And so I want to appreciate him for the same thing. But the thing that kills me, like really kills me, brother, is that people will look at someone who has the word doctor on their name, and they have so much respect thinking this person's smart, not realizing that if you get into a PhD program and you don't drop out, you will become a doctor of fill in the blank. Doctor of medicine, doctor of psychology, doctor of psychiatry, doctor of zoology. So just as he became a doctor in his field, I've been a CEO for 8 years. I don't have any more respect for him than I would for anyone who's been a CEO for 8 years, because it just means you've persisted in your chosen path. I would personally have more respect for someone who's been a CEO because that money came in. You heard me? You can be a professor and be broke if you want to. I'd rather go for the bread. And I can assure you, I made way more money than Jordan Peterson as a CEO versus being a professor. These guys are making like $70,000, $80,000 a year. And that's what he was saying in his lectures, that the intellectuals look at other people in the society who are thriving. They might look at OnlyFans and say, wow, this girl's making $100,000 showing her butthole, and I'm sharing real ideas, but no one wants to subscribe to my OnlyFans. They don't like that. And I understand, because the society is tremendously perverse, focused on the wrong things. So it's my pleasure to honor a guy like Jordan Peterson, because he deserves respect, because he is a wise man and he is speaking truth in a society that is really suffering from lies.
That's deep. Yeah.
Anything else on your mind, boss man?
No, that's all. I just got your book. I read chapter 1. I can't wait to read the rest on the weekend.
Now, your name, you have to tell me how it's properly pronounced. The last name I read similar to that was a Haitian former president who was deposed.
Aristide, right?
Yes.
Mine is Aristides.
Aristides. Spanish.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what's up. Yeah, okay. So initially when I saw, I was like, okay, my man is Haitian, but
Dominican.
Yeah, people tell you that all the time, huh?
Yeah. All the
Yeah.
time.
Well, not super far from Haiti anyways,
No.
right? Right next door.
We're all brothers. I'm not one of those Dominicans that hate Haitians, They have beef.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, I know what you mean. I appreciate you tuning in, brother. Thank you for the support. And your name looks familiar. I think you're on Patreon, or either you just
GT Talks. Yeah. I just changed the name here.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining in, Saint. Appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Okay, Alex, how are you, Saints? Good to see your face again. You're on mute. You're on mute, Playboy. Oh, you're still on mute. I'm Alex, I'm gonna let you drop out and come back in. It looks like he's still on mute. I'm gonna go through a couple of these super chats while he's getting his audio together. Last Ronan writes, "Quit. I'm very excited for the conference, but I'm a bit concerned that COVID will restrict it. Will the conference happen either way?" Saint, let me let you in on a secret. When we first announced the conference, we said we're going to do it with 300 individuals. At the time that we announced the conference, the limitation in Las Vegas said you can only have 50 individuals. We still announced it at 300. Then as time went on, the government said you can have 250 individuals in one place. We still have 300. We trust that things will continue progressing, and we will definitely move on. The show must go on. You cannot let the things going on in the greater society wreck your plans. Focus, Saint. We are going to make this happen. And I look forward to seeing you as well at the conference. And shout out to the folks who are getting their tickets. We just sold a couple tickets for the conference today. And by a couple, I mean like 30. So hurry up and get them. And you guys have to know that the economy can only stay closed for so long. There's no way the economy will be able to recover from, and I'm talking about the global economy, can recover from being closed for over a year. We were in tremendous debt before this. I think Biden will know that we'll have to come out of this, so have no fear. I have no fear whatsoever. And remember, you always must keep optimistic and positive. Things will always work themselves out. Have no worry whatsoever. B Money writes, the less attached you are to the superficial things in life, people, possessions, the happier you will be. Money is strictly a means to an end. B Money, thank you for the super chat and sharing the knowledge. You are 1,000% correct. In fact, you should not even be attached to life itself. When it's your time to go, smile and go. Don't cry, don't whine, just go. It's your time. That is a Stoic philosophy. And that is a philosophy we definitely abide by within the SAS. And I appreciate you sharing that. And too many people get wrapped up into materialism. And I can give you guys a clue that it is very, very feminine of you to get wrapped up into materialism. Don't you ever do that. It is upon the man to stay living in your mind. All of these material things should mean nothing to you. And let me give you a quick anecdote. I opened an office for my tech company in Puerto Rico. I was very blessed. I did it with the blessing of the Puerto Rican government. They provided a grant, hired gorgeous Puerto Rican women to work for me, lived on the beach, had an office there. And then 2 hurricanes came, Category 5 hurricanes. I'm talking about the stuff that killed the dinosaurs. And I was there on the island when that happened. After that happened, I had nearly nothing. My luxury apartment was destroyed. Water everywhere, maggots inside of the refrigerator, no electricity, no cell phone service, no internet, no running water. You can't escape the island no matter how much money you have. No commercial flights, no private flights. Very rough situation. And at that moment, you get left alone with who you actually are. Wealthy men, it doesn't matter. The restaurants aren't open. The grocery stores aren't open. It doesn't matter how much money you have. You find out who you really are. And if you really are worth something, you'll still be standing strong and standing tall. That thing nearly bankrupted me, bankrupted my corporation as well. Came out of it just a couple months later. I'm walking across the stage getting an award for my work. Bank account was built back up just a couple months later, but I won't tell you that I did have to be homeless for a time. I did have to be homeless and in very bad situation because I knew that I was not going to file bankruptcy. Not for myself personally, not for my corporation. And I had to raise money for my corporation from zero, but I got back on because of the man that I am. If you can make it once, you can make it twice if you're truly a hustler. So yes, don't get attached to this stuff because this stuff can all be taken away. Anything material can be taken away. Your life itself can be taken away. Your health can be taken away. And all of those things are promised to happen. That is a part of life. A great man is able to expect it, to anticipate it, and to smile when it happens and continue on with a good attitude. Alex, you got that audio together, Saint?
Do you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
All right, awesome. How are you doing today, Marquett?
I'm feeling fantastic. Even better now that you're here, that I get to talk with the Saints. I see a non-truth is on here moderating, so I feel great.
Awesome, man. Just wanted to shout out, I just finished your book today, out of all the days.
Okay.
And I have to say, very, very insightful stuff, very clear to the point. And this is a crossover I did not expect because I did also read The 12 Rules of Life by Jordan B. Peterson as well. This is a good day. Yeah. And I really appreciate this stuff you're putting out there. So I just wanted to say that, you know, after reading both these books, it's kind of funny because they both have very similar parallels. Yes. Both you and Jordan have a lot of similar philosophy. However, your critique to him, I do agree, because when I was reading his book, there was a lot of dense academic stuff that could have been distilled, and it didn't come from a personal perspective. It was more of other people's stories from other intellectuals and great people such as that. While with your book, it was short, concise, and it came from a personal point where it struck me as a human being. So it hit me in a different way, and I really appreciate it. That's all I really had to say for that. But yeah.
Alex, I appreciate your commentary. And in fact, I do want to do Dr. Peterson a justice. And so I might have to do a part 2 of this one because I want to do his 12 rules for life. In fact, I actually have them here, and it totally slipped my mind to go through Jordan Peterson's 12 rules for life. So I will put that on my list, and hopefully I can get to making my next work about that. With regards to the 2 books, people often look at the veneer of things and rarely get to the substance. You know, he's Dr. Peterson, so they just give him respect immediately. And me having as much intellectual ability, but having had different influences and a radically different experience. Growing up in poverty, I was very oriented on not being poor. Poverty is traumatic. And so whereas I could have very easily went into a PhD, no problem, and had an easier time at life doing a PhD, less money, but an easier time, I went into business. And unlike academia, business puts you in the real world. You have to offer real value to people. And my business, I was very fortunate enough that my tech company had me living in South Korea for 1.5 years, had me living in Puerto Rico for 1.5 years, had me living in 18 different American cities. Baltimore, Chicago, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Petoskey, Michigan, St. Louis, Springfield, Missouri, and I can keep naming places because I'm opening up all these offices for my business, and I'm meeting every variety of human being in the U.S. and even meeting a lot of people abroad in different countries. When I was in Korea, you know, the Korean government invited me there, and they paid for my office to be open and gave us a grant, which speaks to the merit of the business. But they invited a lot of top tier entrepreneurs from around the world, Jordan, Israel, Brazil, and you name it. And so I got to just rub elbows with so many of these high level people and Korean and Chinese government officials. And it really colored my opinion. And what I can say from my breadth of experience dealing with people who are really intellectual, people who are really wealthy, is that one thing affects all of us: story and emotion. Story and emotion. And when I wrote my book, I said, I don't need people to think I'm smart. I don't need people to think I'm cool. I need people to read this book and for it to be a mirror. For you to read about me, but think about you. For you to read my story, but think about writing your own story. And so I tried my best to give my realist experiences, hoping that as you read it, you think more about you than me, and that it touches you so that it sticks to your ribs and you can remember it, because emotion helps you remember. And fuck, I mean, I had a rough go, man. Like I had a rough start at life. And so I wrote it so that people don't have to have a rough start like that. So I appreciate that, Alex. When you give me that feedback, man, that makes me feel so good, because it took me a long time to write that book, and I didn't really want to write a book. And so you telling me that is worth all the time spent.
Well, it was an honor to be able to, I'm sure as everyone else who would say, it was an honor to be able for you to share that with us. Because I know I'm going to refer to a lot of your experiences while I go through challenges, because I'll be honest, I had it a little bit easier than you did. So now I feel like, okay, I got to step this up. I can do it too. So yes, much appreciated, sir.
Thank you. And as I often say, I'm so excited to see what you do. And I really want to put a challenge on all of you men, in that I really want you to outpace me. You know, one guy, one of the Saints had us DM me a video, show me his Rolls Royce. I was like, ooh, that thing is beautiful. Like, that's the kind of thing I love. You know, like, I want you guys to outpace me in every area. I want you to come out with a book. I want it to sell more than my book. You know, I want you guys to win, because at this level, I'm enriched by seeing you guys succeed. You know, if I can be a stepping stone on your route, to me, that's an exciting thing, just to be mentioned in your story. For you to write a story and even mention me, to me, that's true fulfillment. So, Alex, I appreciate you sharing that, Saint, and I will see you soon, I'm sure.
Of course. You have a great day.
Peace. Ahmed, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm well. I'm well. And for the folks online, let me introduce Ahmed, whom I have the pleasure to actually recognize him. I spoke with him earlier. We talked through some of his business things he's working on. I don't want to let anything out of the bag, but a very intelligent man, a very accomplished in his profession, being very successful and extremely humble. And one thing I want to caution all of you guys on is, hey, if you a bad motherfucker, it's okay to say so. I just want to say that right now, because Ahmed is a very, very intelligent young man who is doing tremendous things and probably doesn't pat himself on the back enough. And sometimes, guys, you have to be your own cheerleader. And sometimes the people who should be congratulating you, your parents, your friends, your family, your boss, they don't do it. So I want to do it. I want to shout out to Ahmed and everyone like him who's working hard every day and being successful. What's on your mind, boss?
Hey, thanks for the kind words, Marquett. So I'm really happy you made this video. I'm a big fan of Jordan Peterson. I'd like to share one of my favorite ideas with the Saints, if that's all right.
Please do.
So in one of his biblical lectures, he said that he has never seen anyone get away with anything, not even once. And the way he describes this is, let's say you manipulate reality, you lie or deceive, and you get away with it successfully because no one finds out. But in a few years, you might get yourself into a problem, and you ask yourself, how did I get myself into that problem? And if you trace your steps back, you'll find that the previous the previous mistakes, the previous lies you made have led into that problem. And it really enforced the idea that your actions have consequences. But the scary part is that you may not necessarily know what the consequences are of your action, but you will suffer the price for them.
Ahmed, you're correct, and I appreciate that you recounted Dr. Peterson's idea so succinctly. That is a clear mark of intelligence when you can make it plain. So I appreciate that, and you're right. And one thing I appreciate about Dr. Peterson, we're so aligned philosophically. In the Sasson, we say, and you can literally read this at thesasson.com/about. We say that your reward and punishment comes in life. If you do good deeds to other people, or if you do good deeds for yourself, like exercise and nutritious food, your reward will come during this life. If you do wrong, you fail to exercise, or you do wrong to others, your punishment will come during this life. You fail to exercise, you will have a weak body. You will be flabby and unattractive, and you will suffer because of that. If you treat people poorly, it's highly likely they will treat you poorly in turn. You will lack relationships. So you are so right. And you know what? I had a revelation yesterday morning. When I woke up, this was the first thing on my mind, because I was asking myself, I'm all about simplicity. We can all be highly intellectual. We can all use polysyllabic words and try to make ourselves look good. But I asked myself, instead of using all this vernacular, how can I make my thing so simple that a homeless man could understand it and benefit by it? And I said, this is what we believe in. We believe in, number one, be yourself. Number two, be good to yourself. Number three, be good to good people. Be yourself, be good to yourself, be good to good people. If you follow those three simple things, it'll help you, because if you're being yourself, you'll always feel happy. You're not pretending. You're not tricking anyone. You're being honest. If you are being good to yourself, some of us forget about ourselves, right? We don't show ourselves love, which is a crime. Sometimes we need to celebrate ourselves. Sometimes we need to reward ourselves. We also have to take care of ourselves with good foods, good exercise. And sometimes we got to treat ourselves and say, hey, man, Marquett, you deserve a Rolls Royce. Be good to yourself. And then it says, be good to good people. This is an important one, because sometimes we're good to people who don't deserve it. No, be good to good people. That's why I say show love to those who show love to you. We could all walk down the street. Do you know, and I hate to admit this because I'm ashamed of it now. When I used to walk down the street, any homeless person who would ask me for money, I would always give them money. I would always give them something. Always. And then it occurred to me one day, I was like, I don't know the character of these people. Mm-hmm. I could be giving money to a child molester. Mm-hmm. I have no idea who these people are. I could literally be paying money to sustain the life of a wicked person. So we say be good to good people. So I appreciate you sharing that note from Dr. Peterson. Was there anything else that came to mind?
No, that's all I have.
That's beautiful, and I appreciate that. And I know that the Saints appreciate you sharing that.
Thank you, guys.
Peace. Mark Newman.
What's up, man? How's it going?
How are you?
I'm good, fantastic, man. It's funny because every time I actually communicate with you, whether it be comment section or anything, you know, the beard, I always bring up the AMS thing because you always, what's up, fellas? You know, but yeah, I do want to take the time. Yeah. I do want to take the time to say I appreciate you taking the time out to, you know, just talk to the Saints and anybody who's in the comment section, man, because, you know, yeah, you really don't have to do that. And I say that because short story, during my time in the military, I had a certain mindset, and it goes back, or it goes kind of with Dr. Peterson's ways of the impoverished mindset and how giving them money can harm them. I was in a certain mindset to where I was, you could say, following the Black matriarchy, playing the victim role. And a lot of times in the military, you know, being a Black guy, you know, you may have certain disadvantages or whatever, and there's not a lot of people willing to, you know, help you along. And so I played the victim role for the longest time, and it harmed me, and it hindered my career. And I didn't until later on, until I started, you know, growing out of that and maturing and saying, okay, I need to find ways to, you know, progress my career. And I ended up doing that by, you know, going to school because they have free schooling and stuff like that. But yeah, for the longest time, that victim mentality and not the solution mentality was killing me. And so I say to anybody out there, you know, if you're definitely going through that, especially a black man, because the of the black race has a big problem with the victim mentality.
Talk about it. Let me look. And we're not saying racism doesn't exist, right? We're not saying anything crazy like racism doesn't exist.
Right,
We're saying that
right.
it's not strong enough to stop you. You heard me? It's not strong enough to stop you from achieving. And let me share a funny story that really messed up my head. And I asked myself, what if I was on the other side of this? I would have probably said this was racism. I'm going to share a quick story. And I was so blessed to have this experience. So I'm in Panama, right? I'm in Panama. Bridget's there with me. And we were an invited guest at this luxury resort. So we're on like the 66th floor in Panama. And we're playing craps, right? Now, mind you, I don't recommend anyone gamble or anyone play craps. I highly recommend against gambling. It is a vice. So anyways, we're playing craps. I'm throwing the craps. I got a whole meal next to me. They set it up on like a tray table. I'm throwing the dice. Then a group of about like 5 or 6 older white folks shows up to the craps table. They go to the opposite side. You know, they cash in and they get all their chips. They're making bets. I'm throwing the dice. I'm talking crazy, having fun, half Spanish, half English. I'm having a good time. So then I crap out, and then the dice rotate to the next person, which was this white guy who's about 50 years old. And these are all reasonably well-to-do people, right? We're in a luxury hotel after all. It's the JW Marriott now. It's now the JW Marriott. It used to be known as the Trump, but if you're Panamanian, you still call it the Trump, right? So anyways, the dice go over to this older white guy. He gets the dice and he throws them. And then the table supervisor says, hold on. No roll. And the guy's like, well, what do you mean? He's like, you can't throw the dice like that. He's like, in Panama, you have to roll the dice on the table. He's like, I know it's different in your country, but here we only roll the dice on the table. You can't throw them in the air here. We don't do that. And then the older white guy says, this guy just threw the dice in the air like 20 times. He's like, no disrespect to you, young man, but I just saw this guy throw the dice in the air 20 times. What are you talking about? And he's like, you are not him. You are you. He is him. His Spanish his English a little broken. He's like, you are you. He is him. He was invited. Yes, he can throw in air. He can do what he wants. You have to roll him. All of you have to roll him on the table. I'm sorry. The white guy, being an American, he doesn't understand the concept of an institution, a business saying we are going to give you differential service. We have established a hierarchy, and we're not going to pretend as though you're equal. We're letting you know that young black guy over there is more important to us, and we're giving him a privilege. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm elbowing Bridget, like, look at this shit. It's crazy.
That is crazy.
I'm elbowing Bridget. I'm over here cutting my filet mignon, just watching to see what he does. And he says, go get your boss. And the guy says, he's like, look, I'm telling you, it's not just this casino. It's every casino in Panama. You roll on the table. He's like, I understand that, but that guy's not rolling them. Why are you picking me out? He's like, I'm not picking you out. I'm telling you, your whole group has to roll them on the table. He's like, go get your boss. So the guy goes and gets his boss. His boss comes down, and his boss says, what's the problem? The older white guy says, he's telling me that I can't throw the dice in the air. He's like, I've been gambling for longer than this kid's been alive, and this kid's throwing the dice in the air, and you're telling me I got to roll them on the table. That doesn't make any sense. And then the boss says, well, sir, I understand your concern. This man is right. In Panama, you have to roll him on the table. This gentleman is an invited guest. He is a VIP here, so we allow him certain privileges. You are not a VIP here, so you have to do what everyone else who's not a VIP. So I share that story to say I was on the privileged side, not by accident, right? Like, they didn't make me a VIP for fun. They made me a VIP for a reason, but I thought about it. I was like, what if I just walked up to this table randomly, just like this white man did? and I saw a white man throwing the dice in the air. And then when I threw the dice in the air, they said, Marquett, you got to roll them on the table. And I said, but he's not rolling them on the table. You're giving him the ability to do what he wants. My first thought would have been what? Racism. That was my first thought. This is racism. But you basically got Panamanians who are closer to him in complexion than me, and they're basically advocating on my behalf. This was classism. He had the wrong ism. It was classism. You heard me? But the thing that it taught me was like, hey, bro, half the time people don't care about this right here. They care about this right here. And that's why every time you hear me talking, I tell you, go get this. And every time I give out game, is to help you get some of this. Not because money is important. What you have to become to get the money is important. You have to become a superior man to the man you were yesterday. If you were broke yesterday and you want to be rich today or tomorrow, you need to become a rich man. And that's a greater man than you have been. So that's why I promote that. And further, with regard to the race piece, if you read my book, there's been a lot of white folks who gave me racism and did me dirty. A lot of black folks who gave me bad treatment and discrimination and did me dirty. People who helped me, a lot of black folks, a lot of white folks. At the end of the day, I had to say, God damn, it doesn't seem to matter what color the person is. It seems to matter what they're thinking. Because if it's a white person discriminating on you because you're black, well, it might be a black person discriminating against you because they don't like you, because they're jealous of you, because they think you're stupid. Whether it's racism, jealousy, hatred is hatred in whatever variety. So what I tell the saints is that our way is I identify as a saint first and foremost. I identify based on my values, what I believe in. And so if you're a white saint from Australia, you're a Pacific Islander saint from Guam, you're a Latino saint from Mexico City, I fuck with you because I know what you believe in. It's some black folks running around here thinking all kind of crazy shit. You heard of RuPaul?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Bruh,
Yeah.
I don't sign off on that. So that's where I really stand with that. And I appreciate you hopping on and sharing your experience, because undoubtedly in the military, there's tremendous levels of racism, but the worst kind of racism is in your own head when you magnify it or when you don't believe in yourself. So that's real game you sharing.
Right. It's crazy because today I just read the first 4 chapters of your book, and the experience that I've read so far, statistically, you shouldn't even have come out to where you are right now, but it's great because it shows that regardless of what your circumstances are, you could come out in any spot, the sky's the limit, so that's why I appreciate it so much, because right now there's a lot of people that, or you could have definitely played that victim role and said, why is my life like this? And, the white man's trying to just hold me down, and the same things that I always normally said, when it comes to, and also you talking about the craps table. There are Iranians that still get, I guess, profiled to this day because of the terrorist attacks and stuff like that. So, and they still push on forward through it. So,
you're so right. And look, I don't care if you're white, black, purple, blue, Iranian, Muslim, Christian, somebody don't like you. I don't care. Yeah. You could be blonde with blue eyes, the nicest guy in the world. Somebody don't like you. That's true. And as you read in my book, my grandmother told me when I was a kid, and I said, they keep calling me nigger, because just side note, if you haven't read the book, there was a time I was in an all-white school as a child for like a year. I said, they keep calling me nigger. And my grandmother said, are you a nigger? I said, no. She was like, problem solved.
Exactly.
Exactly. And she said, hey, you're always going to be a nigger to someone, which means that when she says you're always going to be a nigger to someone, that's a metaphor, which is to say, if you're LGBTQ, somebody gonna call you a faggot. Somebody ain't gonna like you. If you're white, somebody gonna call you a cracker. If you're a woman, somebody gonna call you a bitch. Like, no one gets out of life alive. everyone's getting good. You know, we all gonna get disrespected. We all gonna get hurt. We all gonna have challenges. And when she set me on that mindset, I said, okay, bet. I could deal with that. Worst they can do is call me a name, bet. She said, now, if they call you a nigger, fine. That's not an issue. They not rolling up a noose to hang you, are they? I was like, no. She's like, okay, you're good then. She said, but if they lay a hand on you, well, well, then that's a different story. That's when you start whooping ass. And you know what? That mentality has carried me very far. And I've dealt with some people that I knew 1,000%. I knew for sure they were racist and they did not like black people, but they fuck with me because they saw, hey, I might not like this individual. I might not like the race he belongs to, but God damn it, he works hard. I can't hire nobody better than him. You know, like I can't hire nobody better than him. Yep. So they have to deal with me. And that's what my grandmother always told me. She says, look, son, I grew up in Arkansas, in Lone Oak, Arkansas. I literally picked cotton as a kid. I didn't go to elementary school. I got taken out of elementary school to pick cotton. You don't have to do that. Anything you could possibly complain about means nothing to me because my father had no education. I only have a 3rd grade education. Just the fact that you get to go to school is a privilege. I will never hear your complaints. Man, that changed my whole perspective on everything, man. Like, you know,
That's
when
real.
you look at a person who grew up in an era where she literally saw black men hanging from a fucking rope with their whole scrotum cut off. Because what most people don't know, when you lynch someone, you usually cut off the penis and the testicles. That's a part of the practice. So she said, look, if that's not happening to you, you good. And you know what? She's right. We're all good. And so I appreciate you sharing that because so many brothers want to come at me with excuses. And I say, look, man, is your mom on crack? Mine was. Your dad ain't in prison? Mine was in prison the whole time I was a kid, man. I grew up with my grandmother who had dementia. She literally was batshit crazy, and she was the only adult that was seeing over me. Did you grow up in like tremendous poverty? Like I'm an actual crack baby, my guy. I'm an actual crack baby.
You had it worse than me. You had it worse than me.
And that's why I tell them, like, my only challenge to you is to outperform me. Because if I came from the genetics of a drug dealer, criminal, ex-convict, thug, and a crack mother with like really bad habits and theoretically low IQ, if you can't beat me, you ain't hustling. You should be able to beat me. That's why when I look at Jordan Peterson, he's only mildly impressive to me because I came from way down here. He started right here, but I went to superior universities and I didn't get in on affirmative action because that didn't exist when I went to university. I got in on merit. You could check my background. My SAT scores are like perfect. Literally, you know what I'm saying? So it's like I expect everybody to beat me. And the funny thing about it is I'm encouraging y'all to beat me. I want you to beat me. I want to pull up in the Rolls and see one of the Saints pull up in the nicer Rolls so I can look at them and say, watch next year. I'm about to get some whole crazy shit. Like I'm gonna get my money together. I'm gonna get something crazy. And it's not about the money. It's just about, it's a measuring stick. You know what I'm saying? It's just a measuring stick. And I want everyone to be happy as well. Because the greatest measuring stick is happiness. Because Robin Williams had money, but he wasn't happy. He committed suicide, right? So money's not everything. I'm also talking through this mental health. That's why I said, number 1, be yourself. Easiest thing to be. Number 2, be good to yourself. Love yourself. That's why if one of these young boys get on here talking cocky, I applaud it. Shit. I want you to support yourself. I want you to be your biggest fan. So, man, you on here, you got me talking crazy, talking reckless on here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I don't want to hold up too much of your time, but yeah, the Robin Williams death is, that those type of deaths, they remind you that, we're still human beings and it don't matter what type of status you are, you could still be stuck in the mud, So, but appreciate the time. I don't want to hold up your show. I know it's people probably waiting. I'll call in next live, man. I appreciate
Mark,
it.
I appreciate you fellowshipping with me. And this is not a show. This is just time for us to fellowship and support one another, build on ideas. Those other cats might have a show. I'm for sure. They might have a show, but I'm not here to entertain. I'm here to listen to you guys, to hear you out, to grow with you. Because sometimes you guys say something and it reminds me. Because no man is 100% focused all the time. I sometimes hear things that you guys say and think, oh yeah, I'm gonna take that to heart. I forgot about that. So just you pointing that out, that's such a blessing for me to hear that. Because right now I'm going through tremendous troubles or challenges, and it helps me remember this ain't special for me. Everybody got challenges. You feel me? So I appreciate you coming on and reminding the whole Assassin about stay strong, stay positive.
No doubt, man. Take it easy, Marquett, man.
Peace.
Till next time.
Is it XOs? How's your name pronounced? Jose? I'm not sure the same real life.
Jose, actually.
Jose.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
or Jose, either one.
Oh, Jose.
Oh my
okay,
gosh,
absolutely.
I wanted to say thank you. I want to say thank you, Marquett Burton. You don't understand, man. All the knowledge you've been spitting, woof. You know what's crazy? I only saw your post because it was related to a video to the, what was it, the Four Horsemen, the game or something like that?
Yes.
And I remember you just, I was like, oh, he's critiquing it, because I was trying to study like the game and understand it better. And then I clicked the video, and then you just started calling all the BS, and I was like, damn. Especially when I actually saw like the pimping video. Oh my God, changed my perspective on everything.
I appreciate that.
Especially like, man, you have no idea. Especially that one, well, not so much that, but like, yeah, I noticed you and Peterson have like a lot of views that actually correlate like really good with each other. I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, wow, you guys have a lot of similar views on a bunch of things. But you're right, actually. You do simplify a lot of like the ideas that he has. And that's, to tell you the truth, I think more genius than anything else in life.
Yeah. I appreciate that. And you're totally right. When you truly understand something, you can make it plain. And the greatest philosophers are those who can give you an aphorism as opposed to an epigram. An aphorism is a short, pithy statement that applies widely, whereas an epigram is like a meaningful statement, but it generally applies just to one thing. And what I want people to have is a very short, clear philosophy that helps you operate effectively in the world. And there's so many people who haven't read the Quran, but they say they're Muslim. So many Christians who haven't read the Bible, but they're religious. And that's because these are long books. Right. The Quran is actually pretty short, realistically, but these are long, dense texts. So I want to make something short where you can get that game and you can go achieve your goals with it.
And, you know, I was reading, actually before, like, I was reading, like, or watching your videos about pimping, you made me actually pull out a notebook, and like I do securities on me, but to like sit down for long periods of time and just work on something if I really want to. Mm-hmm. So I would like, I'd watch like the part 1 video of the pimping and then the second video of the pimping, and I wrote down all the notes. And I remember this one line that actually I wasn't sure what you meant from the video, and it was like, what was it? I'm as sweet as the scratch she brings back, and not a drop sweeter. And I was like, I wonder if that means, is it as sweet as she is to you, in which regards you know, like you value her, or whatever she brings you back, is that how good you treat her? And I was like, oh, you know what? That's probably what it is.
Absolutely. Which is that you're rewarding her with your affection according to her contribution.
Man, I've always had trouble with trying to figure that out, because like I said, I remember like the Four Horsemen, they'd be like, oh no, you gotta be asshole to the girl. No, you gotta be cold to the girl. I'm just like, that doesn't seem right. That does not seem right.
Yes, these individuals are saying things that they heard, and shout out to them. There's no disrespect here. And I think Alpha Male Strategies is a pretty comical guy. I enjoy his sense of humor. In the few clips I've seen, Steph is a very young man. So, you know, like I can't say anything down on him. He's doing better than I was doing at his age, surely. But none of them are, when I say doing better than I was doing. I mean, on YouTube. Like I wasn't on YouTube at his age because it didn't exist when I was his age. But as far as women, I can tell none of them have it in their blood. And so that's why I felt compelled to share my perspective. I appreciate you tuning in, Jose, and sharing your thoughts. Your audio is a little delayed. I imagine you're probably on the phone, on the move right now, but I appreciate you tuning in and sharing your perspective with us, saying thank you for the commendation.
Hey man, much love. I wanted to ask one last thing though, actually pertaining to like the Jordan Peterson thing, if that's okay.
Sure.
I remember he was talking about resentment, and it made me think about like the period of time when I'd have like a huge hate for like women for a period, kind of like almost Iceberg Slim was, where he almost like just hated them or dealing with them at all. And I kept thinking, I was like, what really did that get me? Or what does that benefit you? And it just makes me think of like, you're really angry at something you can't particularly control, but then you got to realize you do have some type of influence like over it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or like some way you can change your circumstances.
You're totally right. It has been said in a more concise way that anger is like taking revenge against yourself. If you're angry, it's like taking revenge, not on the other person, but against yourself, because anger is an unpleasant emotion. That's number one. Number two, we tend to put expectations on other individuals, whether it's women or colleagues or family. We project what we want, and we think that for some strange reason, they're listening to hear what we want, and that's all they want is what we want. No, they have their own interests, and sometimes they don't align. But if you get you some good game, you can make them align much better. I appreciate you, Jose, for tuning in. We're going to have a lot more conversations. I'll be doing some exclusive lives just for the patrons so they have more time to speak and share their knowledge and ask questions. So I appreciate you tuning in.
All right. Much love.
Peace. I want to hit a few of these super chats. I see we got a couple folks here who want to merge in, and I will merge you in. And then I'm going to get some sleep because I have to wake up early. But I see Marcos, Peyton, B Money. I'm going to get you guys in here. Miguel, the comedian, thank you for the continued support. Saying he writes, I just want to give a shout out. Thank you. Thank you for that. And Sal, MD writes, mad props, Saint. What separates your pimp game is not only the knowledge you bring, but the swag and charisma. The persona to be able not to lose your audience. Much respect. Class in session. I appreciate that. And, you know, I sometimes do topics that are not terribly interesting. And I do them because I think they're important, not because they're going to get a lot of clicks. When I wrote Critique of Jordan Peterson, I think people thought it would be a roast of Jordan Peterson. It's just taking an honest perspective to what he's saying and putting it under a microscope. And when you put it under a microscope, a lot of it is good wisdom. So thank you for acknowledging my talents. And I really appreciate your support. It does mean a lot. Jehovah sends through the super chat. Hovey in the building. Appreciate it. Oh, man, I love some old school jigger. You dig? Silos writes, what's the best way to practice memorizing most of what you read in books, as I see you memorize many books? This is true. I've said this before, and I'll say this again. It is the 3 R's, read, write, recite. They say the 3 R's, even though the word write does not begin with an R, but bear with me. Read, write, recite. You read the book, you underline the important notes. Then you read through it again. You write down the important notes on a separate piece of paper. Recite. Then you recite all of what you have written down, and you go through that process 3 times. After that, you will remember it. I promise you. The challenge is that most people don't have the patience to go through that process because they say they want to retain it, but they don't really want to. Remember, a professional practices until they can't get it wrong. An amateur practices until they get it right. You see, amateur, they just practice until they can get it right. Professional practices until they can't get it wrong. That's a higher level of practice. I think that often we look at people who do things well and we see them do it with ease. Well, it's only easy because they've done it a million times. Go ahead and like that video like Mr. Man in Action said, you dig? So remember that anything that's done with ease was done with struggle when the person was learning how to do it. Even me, before I give a talk, even if it's a talk about something I know well, I still write down notes and I make sure that I practice it. Taylor writes, me being spiritual, honestly, was a way for me to break free from a set doctrine. Religion was very restricting to me. I'm no pagan or Wiccan. The most I do is practice tarot, energetic practices. Baby, you need to fuck with that Marquettism, you dig? You hear me? Thesassin.com/about, see what it do. Get that good game for life. Helps you find happiness, sustained happiness, and success. That's what you need. That's what we all need, actually. Charlie Sardi, appreciate you showing the support. Saying actually just shot him a DM on Patreon. Charlie Sardi also has a YouTube channel. If you've not checked out Sardi Third Element, check him out. One thing I like about him is the energy. If you want to see someone communicate with energy, I like his energy. And what you might not realize is the way he's talking on that YouTube channel, that's the way he talks interpersonally. And when people ask me about speaking well, I say, you always have to practice. Who you are on camera should be who you are off camera. That same level of energy. That's one thing I admire about Charlie Sardi. And I hope you guys see that, we're all within a community, the Saint and the Sinner Nation. And that's why I always do what I can to support you all. Now, granted, there are 31,000 of you. So when I can't always, be as responsive, please do forgive me. Know that my heart is in the right place. Eric writes, am I at a disadvantage by not attending a top university? For sure. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm getting a BS in software development at a regular school. Plan is to launch a tech startup. Well, number one, you launch a tech startup. No one ever asked you, what school did you, hold on, don't start that company. What school did you go to? Nah, nobody cares. You can start a company. You can be an ex-convict and start a company. Many have. There's a company, I think it's called Pigeonly. It was started by an ex-convict, and it was a wildly successful company. What I will tell you is that when you're at a top university, you're around elite brains. And most of these elite brains come from wealthy families. They have connections. You are definitely missing out on that. I'm not going to lie to you. However, if you get a software development degree, you are putting yourself in an elite position because that's the future. You will be in high demand. So what you need to do, don't focus about what you're missing. Focus on your assets and maximize those assets. You cannot be held down. Trust me. There are many men who have achieved great things with no degree, an inferior degree. Doesn't matter. What degree does Dr. Dre have? Come on, man. Stay hustling, stay focused. But I appreciate that question. Don't ever let your mind play tricks on you. Don't ever let you make up in your head that there's something that's going to stop you from being successful. There's only one thing that's going to stop you: lack of focus and laziness. Ace Anthony, appreciate the super chat, Saint. JM writes, never ever hate women. Agreed. Truly agreed. Adrian Mora got the Sassin shirt. I appreciate that. And I can't wait to get to the conference, see everybody pull up in that Saint Center shirt, you dig? I'm going to be right there in mine as well. It's going to be a beautiful community. And in fact, anytime you see someone who's read the Black Box and they tag me or mention me in their story on Instagram, I always repost it. Always. When people have the Saint Center hat, the Saint Center shirt on Insta, they tag me in their story, I always repost it because I want to show love to those who show love to me. And I love seeing people part of this Saint Center nation who represent and who are bringing more people into this way that we live, because we live in the superior way. We are the leaders of the society. The society is living in a very mentally ill, backward way. We are living based on logic, rationality, good mental health, happiness as a focus. So I love spreading our way. So shout out to all of you. Carrying on. Oh, I think I just missed. I tried to click a super chat and it just moved. So do forgive me. Ace Anthony, again, truly appreciate the support. We're going to go ahead and merge in Marcos. Marcos.
Oh, Marquett. Hold on. You see me?
I can't see you.
Hold on. I'll be right.
All right. Peyton, how are you, Saint?
Hey, what's going on?
I'm chilling. How you feel?
I'm always feeling good.
That's what I like to hear, bro. And I remember that about you. Let me introduce Peyton. And I always, if I'm familiar with someone, I try to introduce them, show them respect. Peyton actually has a podcast Gentlemen's
Handbook podcast.
Gentlemen's Handbook Podcast and they can type in Gentlemen's Handbook Podcast on YouTube.
Yeah, it goes straight like that.
Straight like that. Gentlemen's Handbook Podcast on YouTube. And look, he ain't paid me to say that. Anytime you hear me shout out somebody's work, whether it's Charlie Sardi, it's Peyton, or anyone else, it's either because they did a consultation with me, so I'm personally familiar with them, I can vouch for their work, or some other reason where I can vouch for their work, or they're one of the saints. They're vetted and verified. They're on patreon.com/the Saint in the Center. We've had interactions, and so I always want to share any support I can. And I hope you guys, when you see another saint, if he's doing some work, you support his work. Peyton, what's on your mind, boss?
Oh, nothing much, man. Just calling in, just have a quick conversation with you. I like coming to the Saint in the Center Nation because it's like most times you listen to guys on like maybe YouTube or whatever. It's always guys that follow them are always guys that have accomplished nothing, have done nothing, have negative attitudes, have quitters mentality. And, I'm a mental health therapist, so I encounter that every day, all day. I encounter negativity on a daily basis for work. Like I encounter people who have been through rape, through incest, through everything unimaginable. I encounter the transgenders, the LGBT, I count everything. So it's like, for me, I can't have that mentality because, being that I am the therapist, being that I am the person, I got to have more mental strength than those people. So when I come across normal, everyday people and they have excuses, I'm disgusted. I'm like, I don't want to hear that. I hear it too much, and a lot of people tend to look at you and say, oh man, I know you had it good because, you probably the only kid. I'm like, no, man, I got 6 siblings. It's not about where you come from. It's about the work you put in. And, it's hard to really find people that you really can connect with and say, you know what, that's a genuine, legit person. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think it's like that Tupac quote. He was like, this thug life shit ain't for everybody. The kid in the suburb might listen to it because it sound good, but it's really for the ones in the hood who really need it. And it's like, assassin, that's what it's like to me. It's like, you got people who going to jump on just because they like the shit you're saying and they like the way you talk and they like how smooth it is and how it come out, and they're not going to live by it. But then they got those very few who need that, other guys who out here doing anything, not just out here, looking to hang on to the next man. Because I'll be honest with you, out of most people I know, I'm the smartest person. I'm the first person in my family to get 2 degrees, the whole 9, man. But it's always refreshing to come across somebody who genuine, who's themselves, who not trying to fit into some stereotype or anything like that. I just wanted to give that shout out like that, man, and tell you I appreciate you. And I appreciate you again taking a look at my podcast. I'm gonna be at the conference, and I already purchased your book and read it all the way through. So
and we gotta really politic on the book side of things, because I know that you get to talk to so many young men and have them open up to you. And I know that you have a perspective that I will never have. Most everyone on this 300 folks on this call will never have. And I need this work to be as impactful as possible. So we're gonna have to chop it up. You heard me. And I appreciate you sharing your sincere words, because you're right. Some people are casual with this, not realizing that if you join patreon.com/the Saint in the Center, some people hop on, they do their month and then they cancel it at the end, not realizing that there's so much knowledge that we have to share over the next couple years. But it's not only about, you don't join just for the content, you join to be associated, not with me, but with the other people who are also there. Right now, I think it's 800 people signed up. And what people don't realize is most of those people, they have a $6 membership. Peyton, how do they have a $6 membership when the bottom tier is $16? Because they've been fucking with me that long. You feel me? So like 500 people got a $6 membership. And that's because they've been fucking with it for like 8 months. You heard me? And I appreciate them, because I know that they're not putting their $6 in to get content. They're putting their $6 in because they believe in what I'm doing. They want to support what I'm doing, but they also want to be a part of this group, knowing that these are the real men. This is not the guy you walk by when you when you go to a restaurant. These are real men in this thing. And what they don't realize is that, man, I got so many goddamn plans on how we're gonna blow this thing up that, like, I can't wait for us to sit back in 5 years and have a conversation like, you remember when we didn't run all this shit right here? Like, you remember when, you know what I'm saying? Like, we are going to take over because the world is in need of leadership. Check this out, Peyton. This should blow your mind. I ask people, we just elected Biden. Cool. What is Trump's slogan? They say Trump's slogan is, what's his slogan?
Make America great again.
Right. So you can say he stands for something. It's Make America Great Again. What's Biden's slogan?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not.
He don't have one. So they said Trump is such a divisive leader, we have to vote against him. And the other guy literally stands for almost nothing, but he's better than this guy. So they're saying this guy's trash, and this guy's also trash, but he's not as bad. That's how much of a lack of leadership the planet Earth is in. What we're doing within this assassin is building up the leadership class to lead all of mankind into goodness. Because how is it we're in a society where nothing makes sense? I walk into a restaurant. When I walk in the restaurant, they say, keep your mask on. When I sit down at the table, they say you can take it off.
Yeah.
Nothing makes sense in the society. So we're getting to a bipolar level to where people are just doing things that don't make sense. We need real leadership, real men. So I appreciate you acknowledging that. And I want to shout out to all the patrons who really support me. If I go 2-3 days without posting up a video, know that I went 2-3 days without posting up a video because I don't post videos to keep your membership. I post videos because I must have scratched my head that day and said, damn, you need to know this. Or I scratched my head that day and said, damn, Jordan Peterson is saying some meaningful shit. I've never met him, but I want to bring him to you if you haven't heard him. Or I scratched my head and said, man, I had a real problem. I bet somebody else is having this problem. So I appreciate those who really mess with me, man. And it means so much that you mess with me because you are a healer. You're a healer in a society that's so sick. You hear me? Like, you are what so many people need. So many of us are in mental disrepair. And so the fact that you mess with Assassin should clue people in. That, okay, if a healer is messing with this thing, he's oriented on fixing. This is where you come and get that fix up spiritually, emotionally, game-wise. So, man, your presence here is such a beautiful thing. And I hope I ain't blow you up too big, man. But I love seeing you, and I love hearing what you have to say because your voice is so powerful. I can't wait to see you learn things, man.
You're right, man. That's really a lack of like manhood, man. You know, I grew up with my father. You know, I know you didn't grow up with yours. Really, I read the book and you got to know him a little later, but man, there's certain things just not tolerated in my home. You know, as a man, like you gotta, you know, it's like you gotta put that. You got to put your foot down. You got to have a certain mentality. Look at the rap game. Look at normal society. Look at the way men are. It's like these men are so passive to where it's like no one wants to deal with them. No women want to deal with them, right? And then they don't want to deal with themselves. It's such a passive society, and I see it at its worst level on a daily basis. I see the damage that is done to everybody. That the lack of, like you said, the lack of manhood has done to every single person. You know, it's done a lot of damage in America, you know, and especially in the Black societies and not even in white societies, you know. It's just a lot of negativity going around. A lot of people who get down on themselves and think, oh, I can't do it because of this. I can't do it because of that. And I never had the mentality. I always had the mentality of, shit, I bet you I could do it. You know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely.
You know, you gotta have that mentality, man. And I like that you pushing that. You know, I hear a lot of guys saying, yeah, but you know, being Black in America and the police, and I was raised, I never saw my dad cower down to no man. Not the police, not nobody. When the police, I'm one of the younger brothers, so when the police had my older brothers and cussed, my dad said, stand up. Police like, sir, my dad said, I don't care what you're talking about. You're jealous because I'm a Black man. I'm doing my thing out here, but you're not going to treat my sons like this. You see? So, and my dad come from that era. My dad's 63, so he didn't seen Jim Crow. So it's about what do you accept
at
the end of the day. So I'm not gonna hold the line up too much, man. I know the other people want to get on. You got to get your rest. I know you're a busy man. I just had to stop. I saw the live pop up. I had to stop in and holler at you. So
I appreciate it, Saint. Peace.
all right.
I want to acknowledge Moses, right? Stay on topic, bro. I don't know if he's talking to me or he's talking to somebody else. He could be talking to me. Who knows? But Moses, if you want to elaborate, feel free. I'm always open to good feedback. Moses G writes, Marquett, you got to do one of Kevin Samuels. He's been on fire past few months. Would love to see how your game differs. You know, I've actually done a piece on Kevin Samuels. I feel like that's enough on Kevin Samuels. You heard me? But if someone was to DM me a video on Patreon and there's some specific game, I'd consider doing it. I'll look into it. He's a con artist, honestly. I agree, love. Actually, you know what? Let me not throw any dirt on that man's name. Let me take that back. Let me retract that comment. Dave writes, appreciate everything you are doing, changing lives. I truly appreciate that. And hopefully I'm improving lives. Lives are going to change regardless. Change is inevitable. But what we really want is improvement. And that is my sincere hope. And I always encourage folks to be accurate. We really want to talk specifically about what we mean. And we talk about improvement. Mark writes, Trade School University, what's your opinion? It depends on who you are. We are not all the same. Some of us are better suited for trade school, some of us for university. I tell you what, welders make more money than professors on average. Look it up. Let me know. Having a good trade is, hey, that's a beautiful way to provide for a family. I highly recommend a trade. I think most people are better suited for a trade than a profession. Or excuse me, for better suited for a trade than a university degree, a liberal arts degree. The young man. Is it pronounced Niall?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Pleasure to make your acquaintance. I think you came online when we had Angela. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks for like your stuff, because I remember in one video you said that you lost around $1 million. So that kind of put things in perspective, because I only have like 23 cents in my piggy bank, you know?
Yeah, I appreciate that. And, you know, losing 23 cents, losing 1.3 million, losing money never makes anybody happy. But yes, there have been tremendous challenges. But I'm a true believer that at a certain point, a man should realize that money is not everything. And no one remembers dead millionaires because they were millionaires. We remember people for their deeds and contribution, right? Like Martin Luther King was nowhere near a millionaire. Not someone I like super admire, but you know, just a common reference point. So I appreciate you acknowledging my sacrifice and contribution.
Yeah. Also, another comment before the question. Earlier in the live, you were talking about, I think about your grandmother and like how you grew up, and that kind of put into perspective, because you know, I think at my age, like 14, you kind of think like, oh, you have it the worst, you know, like you're only like 4'11" or something. Oh, you know, you have like a 7-inch dick, you know, everything you think of. And then it's like this random guy was like crack baby, and now he's like, oh, it's like, I'm a suburban kid. I don't with the dad who's a doctor. I don't think I have it that bad, you know.
Right. Yeah, you know, the ability to put things in perspective will benefit you over a lifetime. And there are some people, and I always try to do this when I walk around the society and I see someone in a wheelchair, I think, man, I should go on a run today. I bet that guy would love to go on a run. We're so fortunate and so blessed. And when we take our time to be grateful, you know, it just enhances our quality of life. Literally before every meal, I always ask the person I'm dining with, I say, what is one thing you are grateful for? And if you go to thesassin.com/about, it says before every meal, ask that person, what is one thing you are grateful for?
Now, my question is about school, because now I view school with a grain of salt. Like, I view it more as like a test to see how disciplined and like how well you can do at something you put. And I feel like with me, I'm quite lazy. Like, you know that like stereotypical skater kid that like flies by, barely passing. I'm like that, but instead it's with like A's and B's. But I feel like I can do better. But I'm very bad at organizing like thoughts and like remembering how to do things properly. So I was wondering, like, how were you?
Number one, the executive functioning in the male brain develops later than the female brain, which is to say that males generally are not as organized as women earlier in life. And we will improve our ability to be organized, but we will rarely achieve the level of women in terms of being detail oriented and highly organized. So that you might have to live with. If you have great ability in terms of intellectual comprehension, then you surely should be putting yourself to the test. High school is going to be remarkably easy compared to university if you go to an elite university. So there's no reason you should not be getting high marks. However, you should remember that at the end of the day, high school is just covering basic things. You know, high school is not going to determine if you're a successful person or if you're not a successful person. However, if you learn how to work hard and you learn how to be focused and organized now, today, it will benefit you in university, will benefit you in your career. And the earlier you learn, the easier life will be. I kid you not. When I was in high school, I was just smart. I was not hardworking and I was not organized. When I got to Berkeley, smart won't get you by. Everybody's smart. Now you're the dumb kid in the class, right? Because everyone's smart. But what I realized is that I wasn't organized, and just being smart didn't get the job done. And I got like my first like really bad grade at Berkeley, my first semester. And then I started learning how to work hard. I would have much rather come in the door knowing how to work hard. That is to say, the earlier you start good habits, the better it will serve you.
Yeah, I was saying because I started getting my first like bad grades because in middle school there's a exam for, and then you kind of get placed in cognitive like class, and then for math, English I didn't do that well because I don't know, reading and poetry not my thing, but math I scored like 2 years ahead, and the class is like really hard. Like I don't know what it is. I mean, I understand parts of it, but you know, kind of like zone out. So, you know what I'm saying?
I do. And one thing that is rarely mentioned is the ability to focus when things are boring will give you a tremendous advantage over all of your peers. For example, computer coding is fairly boring. Learning a new language is fairly boring. So the more you can get your brain to focus when things are not exciting, when things don't feel like a video game, you'll be in a very strong position. And that is true emotional mastery. I appreciate you tuning in and sticking with us. I'm quite sure that you will make improvements. And remember, it's just one step at a time. So thank you for sharing your questions with us.
I'll get that Patreon money in a couple of years.
Make a goal to have it sooner than that. Because when I was your age of 14, I already had the Patreon money. You behind, bruh. So you better get your butt to work, young man. Peace.
Yeah.
Oh, my old friend. How are you?
I'm good, Marquett. How are you?
I'm well. I didn't recognize the name. Now I recognize the face. What's the latest?
Yeah, a little disguise in the name. What's new?
Right. What's new? Let's see. New. I've started some new product lines. I've closed down an entire corporation, which is quite a complex process legally, financially, tax-wise. So that's a new thing. I've never dissolved a corporation before. So making adjustments as a result of the pandemic. I'm being more social than ever, inviting a lot of friends every weekend, and I've had like a really high quality of life. And that's one thing I realized the last 7 years, all I did was work. That's it. And so I've really tried to take out time to enjoy people and enjoy the food.
For sure. Yeah, definitely. I wanted to ask, when is the meeting in Vegas or whatnot that I hear you talking about? When is that?
That is January 30th and 31st. That's a Saturday and a Sunday.
So, shit, you're like right before New Year's.
January 31st.
I'm coming off call, so I'm a little
yeah,
tired.
Yeah. A month after New Year's.
Is there still tickets available?
There's
Sure.
still some tickets available. If you go to thesasson.com/conference, and I'll type it in right now, you can get some tickets. Conference. Yeah. And there's a super chat. Marquett says, you got another conference after the pandemic for International Saints. I try not to look too far into the future, but hopefully that's my short answer to Moses. But yeah, it'll be the 30th and 31st.
I just wanted to say what's up. I'm going to try and make it to that conference for sure, though, but I just wanted to say hello.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure. And hey, I'm going to let you get some sleep, brother.
Yeah, that New Year comment. All right. Take care, Marquett.
Peace. Ben, how are you, Saint?
Hey, I'm doing great, man. How you doing?
I'm feeling well as well.
All right. You know, like I like what you like a lot of what you said. You know, in the throughout the whole thing. You know, like, but there's one thing that I really like appreciate about Jordan Peterson is the fact that he added this message I think is really important that many people do not really have access to or like are not taught in school or like in the world just in general is the fact that you know like that life is suffering and that the fact that life is harsh and then in like and that like at the end of the day it is like upon you, it is in your hands to take yourself out of that situation and to make something out of yourself. And I think that's really important. And like I'm actually impressed that you were like able to just break down everything that he was saying and simplify the way that you did, because like it took me months, it took me so much time to understand what he was saying. And when I joined your Patreon and started watching your videos and stuff, I was like I was like impressed by you like simplifying those type of messages, because it's really hard to do that. So like shout out to that.
Thank you.
Really. Yes. And then I have one question, and like my question is basically that so I have this goal. I want to learn how to I want to learn how to write and speak the things that I basically think in my mind. But like like I want to do it like in a way that people can understand, like in an easy way. So I believe that one way to do that is to to go to university. I think like one of the goals of the university is to basically teach people how to how to how to write and speak, and being exposed to different type of ideas. But like I'm a freshman in college, like I go to an HBCU, but like it's like we started school, and like all this time that we spent there, it just doesn't seem like I will be able to accomplish that over there. So I wanted to ask you if you had any tips or if you had any idea of any other way that I could learn how to write and speak what I think in my mind.
Well, number one, generally speaking, university will not teach you how to write and how to speak. Theoretically, high school and elementary school are supposed to teach you how to write and not really how to speak. You might take a speech class in high school as an elective. You might take a speech class in university as an elective. But generally speaking, how to write, as you phrased it, would be something that would start in primary school and be completed in secondary school. Whereas in university, you're not learning the how of writing. Rather, you're being polished, and your writing is either being groomed for writing for certain kinds of audiences, writing literary works, writing for particular genre. So what you're speaking of, like more so the basics of how to write, that is something you probably have to get some development in going to the writing center at your HBCU. Now, with regards to how to speak, well, there are a lot of classes you could take, or even organizations like Toastmasters that you could join. But my recommendation is this: the company you keep will rub off on you. There is no way you can spend time with 5 men and women who are all articulate and speak well, and you'll keep talking the way you talk. Impossible. you will raise your level up because they will be using vocabulary you're not familiar with. You won't even have to look up the words. You'll hear them a couple times in context and you'll figure it out. You ever notice you're hanging around someone and you start talking like that person, you start using their slang?
Yeah, definitely.
If you hang around people who don't use slang and they're using high-level vocabulary, you will eventually pick up some of their words. Their words will become your words. Their manner will become your manner. There's not a coincidence that African Americans, I'm not saying you are African American, but there's not a coincidence that African Americans speak in a certain vernacular. Well, they speak in that way because they've grown up among one another for a significant amount of time. Just like if you grew up in China, you would speak Mandarin because the people around you speak Mandarin. So what I'm advising you to do is to find birds of the feather that you want. Hang around those birds and you will gain that feather. That's the easy way, the quick way to improve your speaking.
All right. Do you think that like reading books and things like that can actually help you achieve that?
It does help you, but what is underutilized is writing. People often talk about reading. Read a lot, but also write a lot. You'll find that if you write a lot, you're forcing your mind to choose the appropriate word, which is to improve your diction. And so I write a lot. I've always written a lot. And I think that that above most things has helped me improve the way I speak. And I'm not too proud to say, like, this book right here, it's filled with my writing. You know, it's filled with my writing. I'm constantly writing.
Yeah.
So I do advise you to pick that up.
All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
My pleasure, Saint.
Thank you, man. Stay safe.
You too. B Money, what it do, baby?
How's it going, man?
Feeling
My
like
bad
a
if the
million
lighting's bad or whatever. I'm down in the basement about 1
It's all-
o'clock in the morning.
Yes, sir.
I got a friend too. Y'all want to say what's up? It's my little turtle. But anyhow, yeah. Nah, but anyhow, I mean, shit. Honestly, I could have said, look, I'm gonna try not to be long-winded, but when I do talk, I talk for a while. You feel me? Because I don't talk all the time, but when I do, so anyhow,
Got it.
there were some topics I did like being discussed. I did like what I forget his name to be honest, but the younger cat. I mean, I say younger, I'm young too, but you know, the 14-year-old kid.
Yeah.
I like what he had to say about school, and I agree. Personally, I had always been placed in the advanced placement classes and all the classes where, you know, the smart people go. And I guess you could call me intelligent, but I found, at least now I'm in my senior year of high school, starting about sophomore, freshman year, I started kind of just becoming disillusioned with school. I didn't really enjoy, you know, it's not that I don't like learning and don't like being educated, but it's more so that I don't like the structure of school and how they kind of present themselves. You know what I mean? I don't like that school basically prioritizes effort over, you know, actually stimulating you intellectually, you know, kind of, you know, you don't really get a lot of chances to really discuss something and explore the world beyond, you know, basic Common Core concepts. For example, you know, you can learn math in school, but school doesn't teach you the concept that math is a system of thinking. It's a way of articulating certain concepts. You know, school can tell you how to analyze a book, but it can't tell you how to take your analysis and what you've pulled from a book and apply that to your own life. You know, I never liked reading the books they told us to read in school. I always liked reading the books they didn't tell me to read. And as a matter of fact, I'm reading that, they brought it up earlier. I'm reading that book, Pimp a Story of My Life by Asper Slim. Because that's some cold shit, you know. That's some OG shit, you know.
Right.
And, you know, basically my whole point was like, a lot of things you do in life that you're told to do are good in certain ways, but in other ways I find that they're just really they're superficial. I mean, I guess you might agree with that. You know, my example would be school. You know, people tell you you need to go to school, you need to go to college to succeed. But
well, you have to be able to interpret these things knowing that this is general advice. Yeah. It's not advice to you in particular. It's general advice to the average person. School is designed for the average person. and the average person is not very intelligent. They're not very insightful. So school is something that's easy for them to deal with and digest and make it through. And it's teaching them how to be responsible and put in effort and work within a system. So when they become an employee of a boss, they can work within my system. But it's not teaching you to be a boss and create a system. Well, you got to teach yourself that, or you got to get some of this game on YouTube to do that. So you're right. School is designed mostly for suckers if we're talking about the average public school. Now, if you're talking about an elite university, then that's a whole different thing, because you're going to be treated in a radically different way in your average public high school versus at Yale University or Stanford University. You feel me?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, man. I agree.
Yeah.
And I've also, I mean, I haven't been on Earth for a long time, but
Right.
I like looking back at, generations previous or whatever, just throughout history. I enjoy history. And I've noticed that on a general mean level, society is basically, especially through media, I would say, it's degrading both morally, socially, well, maybe not economically, but morally, socially, and I would say quality of life. And the reason I would say that is that many people get less fulfillment from having.
I think the Saints' internet may have went out. We'll give him a little bit of time for his internet to recover. Oh, man. I was enjoying this young man. I think you guys.
You hear me?
Okay, he's back. All right, talk to me, B.
Let me try to remember where I was at. Oh, yeah, I was talking about media. All right. Well, so I've noticed now, I like hanging out with the older crowd. For instance, a lot of people I hang out with are older people, not old, but, like people before my time.
Sure.
And I've seen this in music too. I listen basically exclusively to hip hop, but I like listening to a lot of the old shit and a lot of the new shit. I'm not going to get to talking too much about music, but this kind of conveys my whole point, is that I'm seeing a general negative trend in terms of how society basically categorizes and how we perceive things. Back in the 1980s, 1990s, they were rapping because they were describing all these, atrocious conditions, all these various things in life that were negative towards them, they caused downfall. And nowadays, the perception is that those ideas are positive. Or, for example, you see in movies, don't get me wrong, they were making crime movies back in the 80s, 70s, 60s. They've been making crime movies since crime has been around. But it seems to me on a general level that what they're doing now in media is an agenda to kind of glorifying the negative aspects of life. And people, especially younger people, I guess people my age, seem to look at that and think that that is the good way to go. Like, I couldn't tell you how many people I know that are like, 16, 17, whatever, they're out here, popping Xanax, doing whatever kind of drugs. And I'm not trying to say I'm any better than them or anything like that. But, it's one of those things where they kind of see this behavior, and then, society as a whole, sorry, my turtle's trying to climb up but anyway, people see these negative attributes glorified and they seem to follow it. And I don't really, I guess the way I see it is I recognize that these are forms of entertainment, and that while the message is kind of glorifying these negative aspects, you can still consume media and stuff as it is intended to be consumed. It's entertainment.
You're right in that there's a tremendous amount of negativity in the society. I'm not convinced that society is more negative now than it has been in the past. What I am convinced of is that differing today from the past is that everyone has a platform. So in the past, if you wanted news, you had to watch Walter Cronkite, which was a gentleman who was vetted, educated, had worked his way up, and is speaking at some level information that has been vetted, and people can respect him as a reliable source. Everyone did not have a platform to reach out with information. You see, people compare me to Alpha Male Strategies, which to me is laughable, because I went to multiple top universities. I'm an international businessman. I've opened offices around the world. I've made shit tons of money and did all that while coming out of poverty. Why would you compare me to a guy who can barely put together a sentence? It's disrespectful. But these imbeciles on the internet say, okay, Alpha Male Strategies has 1 million followers. But I'm like, 1 million followers does not mean $1 million. you don't know business. These guys get 10 cents for every advert that Google runs, but they don't get 10 cents for every viewer. So he might have 1 million viewers, but he doesn't have $1 million, and he's not accomplished like I am. So to mention him and myself, when I've worked hard for an entire life of accomplishment around the planet Earth, there are people in Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, who live in houses that I paid for. Don't mention me with him. He's not on my level. But because everyone has a platform, alpha male strategies can be an uneducated, uninformed, unproductive drug addict. I'm not saying he is. I'm just saying he could be. And then he gets on YouTube and people start listening to him because it's something for the masses. Anyone can get up and spit out some garbage on social media. So that's number one. There's a lot of idiotic thinking being spread to the masses because anyone can get on the platform. Whereas in the past, you got to go to a whole studio and get on a whole cable television channel for people to hear you. Otherwise, you would not be heard. Similarly, you mentioned music. In the past, you had to sign a record deal, go to a formal studio. Now you could have a studio in your basement and put out a whole album and become a YouTube sensation, right? So the mode of sharing information has changed in a radical way that allows people who are not legitimate and not vetted to spread information as though they are legitimate and they have credentials and they have some level of quality to their work when they might not. So that's one piece. Now, with regards to the drugs that you mentioned, we're in a vile society. When I was a child, there was a program called DARE. It said that drugs are bad across the board, marijuana included. There's still a tremendous amount of research that says marijuana is a terrible
Still
thing.
Schedule 1.
Absolutely, especially for a developing mind. If you are a child, boy or girl, and your mind is not fully developed, for a male, your brain's not fully developed to age 25, marijuana will cause issues with your mental functioning, your memory, your emotions, things like that. But now that the government is taxing it and making money off of it, it just shows how rotten, wicked, and evil the government is and how much they would sell their children out, their own children, the society's children, so that they can make a penny and try to balance this national debt that they have. But me, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to tell you straight up. Any drug that you ingest in your body is probably bad, from prescription strength cough syrup to pain pills to marijuana, and everything after it is bad. And I say that because I love you. I don't get money from telling anybody not to use drugs. But if you've read my book, The Black Box, I've sold drugs. I know what drugs do for sure, because the guy I started selling drugs with when I was 11 years old, he's a drug addict today. You hear me? My mother was a drug addict, fathers, uncles. I've seen all variety of what happens to drug addicts, and I've sold all variety of drugs. Trust me, I know what they do. So I'm very sensitive about that because I know it will destroy people. And me, I'm proud to say I have never one time ever used a drug or ever had a drop of alcohol. And that's why I'm strong today. As an intelligent man like yourself, you will not succeed only by your intelligence. You will also succeed by avoiding vice, alcohol, loose women, drugs. Those things will tear you down. In my book, it says many an intelligent man has found his undoing by laying down with the wrong woman or ingesting the wrong drug.
I agree with that shit. I do agree also, you made a good point about distribution, specifically about media. You are correct in saying that, nowadays we have a platform by which any asshole can come and say, this is good, this is bad, whatever it may be. And, people consume that. I mean, I guess that's nothing new. People have been consuming all forms of negative media ever since the dawn of time, whether it be, gory movies or scary movies or whatever it may be. So I agree with that point. And something else I realized probably a while back, and I mean, at least this is something I noticed about myself, is that I'm not even trying to put myself on a pedestal or seem as though I'm better than anybody, because everyone's their own person. But there are a certain amount of real people in the world, and what I mean by that is people who kind of are more in tune with not only their own how they operate as a person, which is important because frankly, if you don't understand your own motivations and your own operational procedures, I don't think that you can really truly understand anything else beyond that. But there are only a certain amount of people I've ever encountered that have the ability to kind of understand where someone like you or someone like me or any one of the other individuals, you know, that consume this kind of content and agree with it. You know, there's only a certain number of people I found that can actually understand that and materialize it. And what I actually found too was that some people, like you told me earlier that I might have to get game off YouTube, and I'll admit I did have to get my game off YouTube. And it's not so much that I learned it from YouTube, it's more like seeing these different creators, you know, content creators or just people putting out information. They helped me to verbalize and actually understand what I already understood subconsciously. You know what I mean? So if someone tells me, you know, let's talk about pimping real quick, right? If someone tells me that you got to keep a hoe in check, you know, I might understand. I might be like, damn, this bitch is arguing with me, yelling at me. I've been told that, you know, I got to say sorry. I got to do this and that.
Right.
But deep down, that's not what I'm feeling, you know. A pimp doesn't take shit from a hoe. You feel me? Like, you know, I'll tell a bitch to go fuck herself. But, you know, so nobody told me that growing up. But that's what I kind of understood internally. Or, for example, I might not, you know, people make attachments with nature, for example, right? Nature is very crucial to the human experience, you know. We live very separated from nature in these days, which is personally one of the things I think that contributes to a negative, you know, declining society. But, you know, people don't understand that. We just know we like nature, but we don't understand why. And so I think it's important that channels like you, for example, help to verbalize and, like, you know, I guess actuate would be the term, actuate those subconscious feelings. And I appreciate that you, and there are other channels too, like you mentioned AMS. It's actually where I discovered your channel off of. I watched your critique of that 4 Horsemen of Game video, and I had to agree actually with what you were saying. It seems like a lot of the people espousing alpha male content on YouTube, it's a front. That's what it is. It's a front. And I'm not saying they're less masculine or more masculine than me. I'm just saying that the way they come off is as a front. And we all do that shit, you know? Like, if we're insecure about something, we tend to project the exact opposite of that in a greater way, you know, than the insecurity actually is. So I do appreciate the kind of content you make too. And, you know, but that's what I was trying to say about game on YouTube. It's certain people will verbalize it for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about that. I mean, there are certain things that you know in your gut, and when someone else says it out loud, you're like, "Oh wow, like that's what I'm feeling in my gut. That's okay. Like that's real stuff." But no one that goes to your school, no one who lives in your your household, confirm that feeling. And the truth is, just as a young man said on the last live session, which was very insightful, he said, "Your parents are just random people, in as much as you didn't choose them and they didn't choose you. It was a match of genetics that created you. And though we love our parents, that doesn't mean that they're geniuses. That doesn't mean they know all the answers to life. That doesn't mean they have enough experience to help guide us on our path. Our path might be radically different. Like, for example, my father, if I needed to know how to get a brick of cocaine and sell it, great resource for that. But what I needed to know how to do is how to open up a corporation in Korea and figure out how to thrive in a market where I don't speak the local language. My father didn't know anything about that right there. So there were other resources I had to seek out. So you're a wise man, and like attracts like. There's no doubt about when you line up a clean glass of water next to a polluted glass, people will always choose the clean glass if they have understanding. The sad reality is that what we're talking about is for the leadership class. There's some people in their heart of hearts, they truly think that alpha male strategies is smarter than Marquett Burton. Now, to people who have common sense, they'd be like, that's ludicrous. But to people who are not bright, that makes perfect sense. And I just have to accept where they are, where they exist. You know what I'm saying? So one thing that's difficult as a man is to realize that there's kind of 3 levels of human existence. There are people who can see things before they happen. That's advanced. before it even happens. You see what's going to happen. There are people who can see things as they happen, meaning they see what's unfolding. They can acknowledge reality. Then there's the third group. They're blind. They cannot see. But here's the trick. They don't know they're blind. And that's the sad thing, which means that the person on the first level who can see before everyone else, to him, both of these groups are blind. To the guy who can see things as they're happening, to him, both of these groups are blind. Because I told you it was coming, but you couldn't see it. So you thought I was blind because I was seeing something you couldn't see. You also think this guy is blind because he can't see at all. And the guy who's blind thinks the first two groups are blind. It's a sad reality of human existence. But out of the three, the wise man is the one who accepts each person where they are and tries to help them where they are while living at the mountaintop. And that's really where we are. I know that the assassin will not be every man. It will just be every great man, and I'm happy with that. So anytime I talk to a young man like you, and let me let you in on a secret, and you probably already realize this, the boy that you may be today, you're smarter than most men who are 50, 60 years old right now. What are you, 17, 18?
I'm 17, man.
17 years old. Right now, you're smarter than most men will ever be. And that's just the reality of how things are. You're smarter right now than my biological father ever was. And that's why he knew how to get a brick of cocaine. He knew how to sell a brick of cocaine, but he didn't know how to do that without going to prison. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So they say be good or be good at it. And he wasn't good at it. Great man, great risk taker, but we all have to acknowledge our limitations. And that was his limitation. You are only going to have the limitations that you put on yourself. So I advise you to keep your nose clean and stay focused and be as great as you should be.
I appreciate that, man. I mean, shit, I guess I'm an old soul. I mean, whatever term you want to call it, I guess I matured a little quicker because of various events of my life that I'm not going to get into because it's not, pertinent to the point. But I do appreciate you putting it that way. And I agree with what you said about people being blind. My thing is, when it comes to interacting with certain groups of people, I can look at an idiot and tell they're an idiot. You know what I mean? But I don't try to judge them off of, the fact that they're an idiot. I try to at least. Now, let me put it this way, right? I have social media and I post and I talk some shit. But at the same time, I don't talk shit in the sense that I'm trying to get into an argument. I say things that maybe will offend somebody, but that, at least to me, seems to be rooted in truth. And, I catch shit from some people and some people don't. But I never try to put people down for being in the position that they're in. I put the position down, but I'll tell them, look, you don't have to be this way, or you don't have to exist in this way, that is, harming you negatively. Like, for example, I know a dude doing, all types of various drugs for so long, his fucking brain is fried. And I tell him every time I see him, I say, look, man, you got to quit that shit. I understand how it is, but you're going to be a fucking retard when you grow up, or for the rest of your life. And I'm like, you know what, bro? Like, try to do better, man, but I understand your position. I understand you.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a saintly thing, is to accept people where they are while also trying to offer them a hand of support. I do need to acknowledge some of these super chats. I want to acknowledge Ernest, who sent in a Cash App. He writes, still working on the plan we crafted, 3 weeks left. Ernest, and I do a lot of consultations with folks who are working on big goals in their personal life and their business life and their relationships. And he has a goal. He's coming up on that 3-week deadline. So I just want to encourage all of you, whether you get a consultation with me or not, set yourself a goal and work on it. Absolutely. So Ernest, thank you for the donation on Cash App. Truly appreciate that. Dr. Daniel Nwosu writes #facts. He wrote that like an hour ago, but apparently we were speaking some facts on there. Let me pop up some more super chats. B Money, if you have any brief responses to these super chats, feel free to share some game. We're going to be winding up. Folks, if I have missed your super chat, go ahead and type that in. I'm going to give you 4 minutes because I am winding down. I got to wake up very early to go on a run. You dig? Start that day off with some exercise. If I've missed your super chat, you have 3 to 4 minutes to retype that super chat right now. J5 is correct. Because everyone on the internet has a platform, there is more trash. That's right. So I guess I'm the janitor of this thing. You dig? Cleaning that trash up. Just looking out for these super chats. Make sure I have not missed any. Trey Gas writes, what about caffeine? Don't do it. VTV writes, marijuana slows down your sense reception from 100x to 10x. True story.
I'm gonna tell you, man, the only reason I like smoking is because I like listening to music when I'm high. I just get into that shit. You feel me? Like, especially that old gangster shit, that grimy shit. Like, when I'm listening to that and I'm faded, like, I can just appreciate it more. But I try not to be a stoner. I smoke a little bit here and there, whatever. But I don't like stoners. And I'll be selling weed and shit on the low, but I don't like stoners. You know what I'm saying?
Let me strike that from the record. He was just kidding for the YouTube police.
Allegedly.
This is a public forum, young man. So be thoughtful about what you say. I don't want people accusing me of being Vlad TV and sending people up to the feds. You dig?
Officer Vlad.
We're gonna go ahead and wrap this up on that note. We're gonna wrap this up with the Creed of the Assassin. You dig? B Money, have you heard the Creed of the Assassin before?
I have not.
You have not.
Have not.
Well, you're in for a treat. It's just 2 sentences, and we're gonna go through the Creed of Assassin right now. Oh, there's one more super chat. Okay, super chat. Sunny Beeston writes, I'm 16 years old. I own a scalable business, and I'm doing well for myself. Just contemplating if I should stay in school or focus on the business. Thank you for your time. If you're 16 years old, man, I tested out of school at 16. You can take a proficiency exam. I didn't go to a good high school, so I ended up testing out. You can read about why that was in my book, but I can tell you my route was to test out. I didn't have a scalable business like you did. I had a business, but it wasn't legal or scalable. So if you really feel as though the business is going well and you're satisfied, if I were you, I would test out of high school, I would enroll in university, and if the business is scalable, hire some goddamn employees, get your experience in university, 1 or 2 years just to see what it's like, then drop out and run that business, because university is something that feels great when you're a young man, and that's an experience everyone should try to have if they can, because it's just fun. It's a good time. SWP Disciple writes, I'm center-left ideologically myself, but weary of the LGBT agenda. So what do you think of the LGBT/BLM agenda is a Trojan horse for? That's a big question. I can't get into that one right now. Oh, did he super chat that? Well, I guess I got to answer that then. Long story short, the BLM agenda, the Black Lives Matter agenda, really has nothing to do with Black people. I do not think that there is a real effort to help Black people. Black people's biggest issue today and in the last 70 years has been economic. Ever since integration, Black people's biggest issue was economic. So that's number one. Is Black Lives Matter helping Black people improve economically? No, they're not. If you look at the comparable groups like, say, the Jewish people who started off in America as a very downtrodden group, they've only advanced through economics. Now you don't see people giving them problems. In fact, they're very influential and powerful in the society. That's because of economics. That's because of money. Black people need to be able to earn for themselves, get off of the government trough, step away from the excuses, and be empowered just like the Jewish community is. And they did that by their own efforts. So Black Lives Matter does not help Black people. They've not created schools for Black people. They're not educating Black people on knowledge of self. They're not helping Black people learn a mentality that will help them be more successful. They're just marching and complaining. There's no real ideology or strategy. LGBTQ is latching onto the Black Lives Matter because essentially what they're saying is like, okay, Black people were ostracized from the society. We're coming in as well because we also want civil rights. So they're trying to blur the line and basically make their struggle akin to the struggle of Black people. But here's how it's obviously different. Black people, like a Black man, for example, wanted the same rights as a white man. There were no new rights being granted. An LGBTQ man does not want the same rights as a heterosexual man, because guess what? He actually already has that right. He has every right that a heterosexual man has. Every single right. He wants novel rights. He wants new rights above what currently even exists for the heterosexual man. And further, he wants to be included in the society as an equal counterpart, even though he's a minority. There are very few people who are actually practicing homosexuality on a regular basis. And he wants his lifestyle to be put in the mainstream as a normal thing, even though it's not. And all of the science indicates that it's not. So they're leveraging the Black experience and the Black civil rights struggle for their struggle, which they're positioning as a civil rights struggle. Although it's not a civil rights struggle, it's a cultural struggle. This is their effort to change the way you think about them, not to change the laws on the books, but to get you to accept them. That's why every Netflix show, there's a gay character. Every show. Is that reflective of reality? I don't think so. I think that's propaganda. So we answered that super chat. Thank you for the support. If there's any
Cool,
other,
if I weigh in real quick.
yeah, hop in.
My man.
Hop in there.
Now, obviously, I'm not very Black and I'm not gay, but what I've come to understand in the political world is that the way I perceive politics, right? It's not insofar as like how it works. It's not so much Black versus white or gay versus straight. And, you know, we kind of touched on this subject earlier. We said it was about classism, but more than that, what this comes down to is the fact that, and this is just my personal opinion, you can disagree if you like, but what the established group does, the established people in power who hold on to power, what they do, they make non-issues into an issue. And what they do is they separate certain Americans from other Americans. So for example, what they do is they create these groups, these civil rights groups, right? Whether it be BLM or LGBT, or in fact, I'll even say the NRA, right? And my family is legal gun owners. And, you know, I have a vested interest in firearms rights. But besides that, what they do is they create these special interest groups and they make the contention in America between, you know, certain classes of people and less about how the establishment is fucking you. So, for example, what they're trying to do is they're trying to say that white people and Black people are, you know, different. Now, obviously, we both live in different circumstances and we have our differences, but what they're detracting from is the idea that the established people in power are the ones who actually have leverage over you. I don't have any more leverage over a Black man than, you know, a Black man has leverage over me. What this comes down to is it's essentially a divide and conquer tactic. This shit has been taught for centuries. Sun Tzu wrote about this shit. You take your enemy, you divide them, and then that gives you the opportunity to seize on that division between the enemy and to maintain control. So what they're doing is they're dividing us among these, you know, frivolous non-issues. So for example, they're telling me, you know, hey, this gay person is getting fucked over by you. You know, that makes me think that, you know, somehow I'm supposed to be some kind of asshole and that, you know, I'm somehow at fault for his problem. I'm not the one in power, okay? I'm not the one writing legislation. I'm not the one, you know, maintaining the government, maintaining social order. I'm not doing any of that shit. The people up top who are actually doing that shit are telling me that I should have a problem with this individual as a method by which to take my attention off of them. I hope I articulated that.
That's an interesting point. I've definitely heard that before, and I think there's a lot of truth there. I appreciate you sharing that. Let me start winding this baby down. We had a super chat. Sebastian Roman writes, Marquett, respect to you and the Saints tuition. Truly appreciate that, Mr. Roman. If that was your super chat or anyone else's, thank you for re-chatting it if it was someone else's, and thank you if it was yours. I appreciate that effort. Alchemist writes, every show there's a feminine / weak Black guy. Think about it. This is very true when in reality, the African American is the most hyper masculine male in the American society. Yet the TV shows are always showing some kind of homosexual Black guy. Why? Because they know culturally the African Americans are against it the most. So they're programming us. Vontae writes, spitting facts as usual. I think we have all gotten through all of the super chats. Great. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, guys, I appreciate you all, Saints, for tuning in with me. B Money, appreciate you tuning in. We're going to end this the right way. Thank you all for lasting to the end. We're going to end this the way we always end this, with the creed of the assassin. Repeat this after me wherever you are, knowing that this is true of you. I am going to be who I truly am because I am remarkable. And I'm going to strive every moment to show the greatest part of who I am. Peace, all the saints. Until next time. Hey, B, thanks.